evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 11, 2024 meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to ask everyone to take a moment and silence their cell phones, and please note that this meeting is being taped by FCTV. If there's any private party here wishing to record tonight, we'll just ask that you step forward, identify yourself for the record, and disclose that you'll be taping. Is anyone going to be taping privately? I'd like to start off by introducing members of the board, starting at the audience's far left. Is Frank Duffy, he's a full voting member. Mark Finneran, who is a full voting member. My name is James Morse, I'm a full voting member, currently serving as chair. Suzanne Murphy, who is a full voting member, who is our clerk. Scott Peterson, who is a full voting member, who is the vice chairman. Tony Petrucci, who is a associate member. We're also joined this evening by Noreen Stockman, the zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, our recording secretary. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town's zoning bylaws and reviewing and voting on applications. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicant and the public to allow for a full and fair discussion of the project prior to closing the hearing and reaching a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. The applicant or the applicant's representatives will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation. Time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant. Next, the public will be invited to comment. Public comment should be directed at the project. It can include an opinion in favor or opposition or a specific question. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time if comments become repetitive. Any member of the public wishing to make a comment should wait to be recognized by the chair. Come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Please speak into the microphone. It will not amplify your voice, but is provided for the benefit of FCTV viewers. The board may continue the hearing to a future date and time. Otherwise, when the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented to make a decision, the hearing will be closed. Once the hearing is closed, no more testimony will be taken. The board will then discuss the proposal amongst themselves and make a motion to approve or deny an application. The motion will be followed by a summary of key findings and conditions. A supermajority vote of 4 members is required for the approval of special permits and variances. Any zoning board of appeals decision may be appealed as provided for in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A and 40B. First up on this evening's agenda is public comment. This public comment is for anything that is not specifically on tonight's agenda. Does any member of the public wish to make a comment about anything that is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. We have no continuations this evening, so we'll get into new hearings. First hearing this evening is 07923M Munson, 88 Jewelers Avenue, excuse me, requesting a modification of special permit 07923 to allow modifications to previously approved plans.
So tonight we have John H. Munson and Erin M. Stain Pine, 29634 Turnberry Drive, Dagsboro, Delaware. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification special permit of 07923 pursuant to sections 240.10.2A and 240.11.3A4 of the Code of Falmouth to allow modification to a previously approved plan. The subject property is 88 Jewelers Ave. And we have town departments. We have water. Let's see what he's written. The existing water surface, presently 3/4 inch copper, needs to be upgraded to a 1 inch PE, and the water meter needs to be installed inside the home and not in a crawl space. Please come to the DPW and fill out a water service application if the ZBA approves this application. Board of Health has no comments. Building says this house is circa 1875. And then we have engineering. This application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Jewelers Ave and Horton Street are private rights-of-way in this area. 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or public rights-of-way. Dry wells are proposed for the roof, as we typically recommend. 5, we recommend the following condition be included in any approval. Upon completion of construction, the applicant shall post the address for this residence. There is a time limit for compliance. 6, where this project falls in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we defer to the Commission for Stormwater Management and Construction Erosion Controls. That's engineering. Fire Department has no comment. And then we have an approval, the order of conditions from Conservation Commission. Well, he's about to say Concom, as we call them. And let's see what else we have here. That's Concom. Planning has no comment, and that's what I have.
For the applicant, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower. I'm here before you tonight representing Jack Munson and Aaron Stainpine, who are the owners of 88 Jewelers Avenue. I'm joined tonight by Clark Brewer, who's the architect on this project. As this board will almost certainly recall, we were before you in October of 2023, and we received approval to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming dwelling. The plan you see on the right here is the plan that was approved. However, the plans have been changed and I think improved, and we now need to modify that special permit. So as you'll recall, 88 Jewelers Avenue is at the southern end of Central Avenue in the heart of what is considered to be Old Minot. The lot is just shy of 6,000 square feet. It's in the RB zoning district, and it is in an AE 13 flood zone. What exists today is a 5-bedroom, single-family dwelling with a detached garage and a sizable shed, total footprint of just shy of 2,100 square feet. The existing structures are non-conforming in a number of ways. The dwelling's non-conforming to front yard setback. It's currently 2.8, where 25 is required. Side yard setback to the west is 8.5 feet, where 10 is required. And the side yard setback to the east is 5.3, where 10 is required. The garage is non-conforming to the side yard setback, being only 9.3, where 10 is required. And the existing lot coverage by structure is 34.8, where 20 is allowed by right and up to 25 by special permit. The existing house was built in 1875. We previously submitted with the last application 2 determination letters from Gary Street. The first was a front yard determination pointing Horton Street, the front yard for zoning purposes. It is an undeveloped paper road. It runs between the home and the so-called ball field, but that has been determined to be the front yard. And the second was a determination by the building commissioner that ornamental gable facades do not count towards height, as they're considered a minor extension of structure, ornamental in nature. So the approved special permit 79-23 allowed a new 5-bedroom dwelling, which would be built in compliance with FEMA requirements, and it had a number of improvements to the setbacks and lot coverage requirements, all of which were allowed pursuant to 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4. The revised plans are largely in line with those that were approved, but generally improve on the nonconformities. Under the new proposed plans, the front yard setback is improved. It's actually 10 feet now, so that increases about 8 feet. The side yard setback to the west is 10 feet, which becomes conforming and eliminates that as a nonconformity. The side yard setback to the east is improved to 5.9 feet, and the rear yard setback is entirely conforming at 34.2. All the setbacks are either improved or eliminated as a nonconformity. The lot coverage by structure also decreases slightly. It's down to 33.48%, and the lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking remains conforming at 35.17%. The revised plans, though improvement over both the existing and previously allowed, still require a modification of the special permit under 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4. Under 10.2A, pre-existing non-conforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. You're asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E and whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformities created, and the existing nonconformities are either eliminated or improved. Under 11.3A4, lot coverage by structure in the RC zoning district may exceed 20%, and the board is asked to consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, the effects of shadow, the impacts on views and vistas from public ways, and the effects of nitrogen on coastal embayments. These revised plans have less impact than those previously approved. There are limited impacts of shadowing or views and vistas in the public way. There's no effect of nitrogen on embayments as the same number of bedrooms, with a newly designed and approved system. This project represents a significant improvement over the existing conditions. It is very much in line with the previous approval. The existing nonconformities, as I mentioned, are either improved or eliminated. Front yard setback is improved, side yard setback to the east is improved, side yard setback to the west is eliminated as a nonconformity. Lot coverage by structures reduced, lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking is also reduced and remains conforming. And this will also comply with flood zone requirements. There's no new dimensional nonconformities created here. There's no adverse effects, and certainly none that would overbalance the benefits that I've outlined. There's nothing about this proposal that is substantially more detrimental than what exists or what was previously approved. So I believe this meets the requirements of 240-10.2A, 11.3A4, and 12.1E. I believe that you can and should grant the special permit, and I'd be happy to address any questions that the board might have at this time.
Questions from the board? Frank?
No, thank you, Mr. Clower. I feel I have a good understanding of the project.
Mark?
No, it is an improvement over, was it October? But you did fail to mention that this is possibly one of the nicest
It's-
neighborhoods in
Well,
town.
what's cool is it's such an unknown neighborhood. You know, you wouldn't.
Very true.
You wouldn't know it was there unless you were looking for it.
Yeah. It's a hidden gem on Jewelers Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, not a coincidence.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy with the improvement. The setback improvement's good.
Agree with everybody's comments so far.
Tony?
Good changes.
I agree with the comments. I wish everyone could find an architect like this. It's just a beautiful, beautiful project.
I have no
Thank you.
questions. Public comment? Seeing none. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to close?
We have a motion to close. Suzanne, is there a second?
Yes. Second.
Frank, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Hearing is closed. No more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions?
I'll second.
Second.
Findings?
Findings, let's see. It's in an RB zone. Flood is AE 12, AE 13, and VE 14. We did have that, we've had one special permit from last year. The lot size is 5940. It's on a private road. Existing is 34.8 over 37.7. Proposed is 33.8 over 35.1. Yeah, 5-bedroom. It improves setbacks. That's all I have, I think, yeah.
Concom did issue an order of conditions. Property will become FEMA compliant. No bedroom increase.
No opposition?
No opposition at the hearing. Thank you. Always a good one. Any additional findings? Essentially incorporate the previous decision.
Yeah.
Should have just told the
Just run
applicant,
that
just
back.
get to the point.
Just run that back.
Conditions. Per plans, per revised plans, posting of address, per Concom's order of conditions, update to 1-inch meter, additional town referrals, standard work hours. Anything else, Noreen?
No, I think you can just express that where you've got the changes are the only change to the prior decision, so everything else would
Fine,
remain.
yeah. Anything else we put in can remain. Anything else? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on our new hearings, we have 05124 Morrison King, 404 Mara Vista Avenue, East Falmouth, requesting a special permit to alter the existing non-conforming dwelling by constructing an addition to the second floor.
Okay, we have Christopher M. Morrison and Allison King, 404 Mara Vista Ave, East Falmouth, Mass. Apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-102A of the Code of Falmouth to alter the existing non-conforming dwelling by constructing an addition to the second floor. The subject property is 404 Mara Vista, East Falmouth. And from town boards, let's see, assessors, no comment. Water, no comment. Building, no comment. And then we have engineering. All right, let's read, oh, it's many pages, hold on. Engineering. Number one, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way, public utilities. Mara Vista Ave and Sycamore Street are public rights-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. Two, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. Three, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property or butters of public rights-of-way. Four, we have on file an approved driveway permit for this property from 2021. It's permit 2021-004. There was no proposed work in the Sycamore Street right-of-way. Based on the plans, an unpermitted driveway was constructed constructed in the public right-of-way on Sycamore Street. What was constructed would not have received an approved permit. Also, the Mara Vista Avenue driveway was not constructed per the permit. And 5, there is a small, this is a very small lot, this is a small lot, and the proposed work is close to the abutting properties. However, it appears that erosion and sedimentation should not be an issue with normal construction practices. However, the contractor should be held responsible for implementing erosion and sediment controls if conditions change. We recommend the following condition be included or similar in any approval. Construction activity shall not cause erosion to or sedimentation to the abutting properties or the town right away. That's engineering. Fire department has no issues. And then we have Concom. Conservation Commission approved the above referenced project through a negative determination under a request for determination of applicability. Plan of reference and determination are attached. Planning had no comment, and that's what we have.
For the applicant, good evening again.
Good evening again. Again, for the record, Kevin Clower. I'm before you representing Chris Morrison and Allison King, the owners of 404 Mara Vista Avenue. Both are here with us this evening, as well as Chris Harris from Salt Architecture. They are seeking permission to alter the existing non-conforming dwelling with a modest expansion of the existing second floor. So 404 Mara Vista is located at the southern end of the Mara Vista Peninsula, and it is a dense residential neighborhood. It is the Residential C zoning district, and it is an AE12 flood zone. Presently, there is a 3-bedroom, single-family dwelling with a footprint of 1,323 square feet, which is 34.3% lot coverage. So it's non-conforming as to lot coverage by structure, being 34.3%. It's also non-conforming to front yard setback, being 1.1, where 25 is required, to side yard setback to the south, being 1.1, where 10 is required, to rear yard setback, being 4 feet, where 10 is required, and also to lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking, being 57.7%. What's proposed is a modest addition, which is an expansion of the existing second story over an existing roof. It is the northern side of the dwelling, and it's all within the existing footprint. The ridge height will remain unchanged at 25 feet 8 inches. The proposal does not impact any of the existing setbacks. There's no change to lot coverage by either structures or structures, paving, and parking. There is an increase in the bedroom count to 4, but this is located on the Little Pond Sewer, which allows for 4 bedrooms by right. Due to the existing nonconformities, this requires a special permit pursuant 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4. Under 10.2A, pre-existing nonconforming dwellings may be changed by special permit provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. Again, you're asked to consider 240-12.1E and whether or not we're creating any new dimensional nonconformities, impairing views and vistas, and reasonably conforming to the neighborhood. In this case, as noted, there's no new nonconformity. The existing nonconformities are all unaffected, and there's no change to views and vistas. This very much conforms to the neighborhood, which is really seen when you look at it under 11.3A4. Again, that allows for lot coverage by structure in a residential C zoning district to exceed 20%. And we're asked to look at the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, the effects of shadow, impacts on views and vistas from public ways, and the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. We submitted a lot comparison worksheet. This is very clearly in line with the surrounding properties and in character with the neighborhood. It is below the average footprint and almost exactly at the average gross floor area. There's no increase in the ridge height, as I mentioned, so there should be little to no impact on the impacts to views and vistas and shadows. We are aware of the engineering referral that was received. We did revise plans to eliminate the parking area off of Sycamore, and those plans were submitted to the board a few weeks ago, so that is been addressed. This project, as proposed, represents an improvement for the owners. It adds useful habitable space and is by no means substantially more detrimental than what exists. There's no new dimensional nonconformities, and again, no change to the existing nonconformities. This meets the requirements of 10.2A, 11.3A4, and 12.1E. I'd be happy to address any questions the board might have. However, I believe that this is a grantable special permit and that you should do so.
Questions from the board? Tony, we'll start with you.
I don't have many questions. I think the architect did a great job in balancing the house and proportions, and I don't see this as substantially detrimental to the community.
You mentioned that the unpermitted driveway on Sycamore had been resolved, but how about the portion work not approved on the Maravista Avenue side? How was that corrected? or-
So I'm not aware of the engineering asking for any changes to that. If they did, we'd certainly be happy to address it. I know that Tim Santos, our engineer, had reached out to engineering department to discuss the changes. Their referral didn't ask for anything specific, it just noted it was slightly different than what was permitted.
No other questions, thank you.
Suzanne?
That's all I had too, is the parking. How are you gonna keep people off the Sycamore side?
They're gonna loam and seed it. Unfortunately, in this area, people do park on lawns occasionally, and that may well happen, but they're gonna remove the parking area that engineering asked them to.
And we can condition the building department looking at the permit for the other driveway?
I have no problem with it.
What's the, Attorney Clower, the increase in livable square feet after the addition?
I can tell you in a second. It is, they're adding 122 square feet.
Thank you. I have no other questions. Mark?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm familiar with this property. I spoke with Ms. King several months ago. They're one of the poor unfortunate victims of our sewering the town. They have a house that had a previously dry basement and now is flooded every time it rains. It's happened all over town. And if there's anybody out there who had the same thing happen to them, they should notify the DPW, because this is a real problem. But other than that, it's fine. I mean, they deserve they're entitled to the bedroom, and they're getting it. I think it's a nice job.
Frank, questions?
No, other members have the same questions I do, and they've already been asked, so thank you.
Public comment? Seeing none. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to close.
The motion to close, Suzanne, is there a second?
Second.
Senator and to Mr. Finneran. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, testimony, no further testimony to be taken, hearing is closed. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Motion to approve the conditions. Scott, is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne, with you? All right, findings?
Findings, it's in an RC zone, flood zone E12, lot size 4,062 feet. It's on a public road, existing 34.3 over 57.7. It's sewered. Had negative determination from conservation. 3-bedroom going up to 4. There is a comp sheet in here. Did I already say sewered? Sewered.
Bedroom count is an addition by right.
Right. It's a 240-10-2A. As you point out, the addition is 122 square feet. I think that's all I have for findings.
Testimony, no increase in ridge height, no opposition at the hearing. There was a referral concerning illegal parking on Sycamore. The applicant has testified their intention is to cover it with loam and seed and eliminate it, and that can be conditioned. Any additional findings?
All right.
Frank or Mark? Conditions?
Driveway on Maravista, is it on Maravista?
Yes.
Yes, shall be permitted. No parking on Sycamore, like you just said, it shall be seated
Parking lot, space.
in the space, right? Right.
Yeah, why don't we just condition it that, per the applicant's testimony, it will be covered over with dirt and grass.
I don't
Loam
think
and
this
seed
is,
sounds so much nicer.
Loam and seed, excuse me. Dirt and grass, loam and seed.
something like that.
Green thumb I do not have.
Yeah, work hours.
Standard work hours,
I don't think we have to write any other structures, they can't fit anything.
shoehorn.
Might as well throw it in there, though,
Yeah, incorporate the referral about erosion and sediment controls.
all town boards, yeah.
Yeah, all town boards and referrals. Work with the police department if they need to come up with a parking plan, because that gets tight. Anything else, Noreen or board members? All right, All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's a vote.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Next up, under new hearings, we have 10422M Gordon, 3 Amherst Avenue, Falmouth, requesting a modification of special permit 10422, raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming single-family dwelling.
We have Timothy J. Gordon, 3 Amherst Ave, Falmouth, Mass., applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification of special permit 104-22 pursuant to Section 240-10-2A of the Code of Falmouth to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The subject property is 3 Amherst Ave, Falmouth, Mass. And from town boards, we have assessor's note comment. Water. The existing service will need to be upgraded to a 1-inch PE. The meter will need to be installed inside the home and not in a crawl space. If approved by the ZBA, please come to the DPW and fill out a water service application. Building has no comment. Engineering. Number 1, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Amherst Ave is on a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public properties, abutters, and public rights-of-way. 4, dry wells are shown on the plan for the roof as we typically recommend. 5, while this is a small lot and the proposed work is close to abutting properties, with the proposed work area and location and lot grades, it appears that erosion and sedimentation should not be an issue with normal construction practices. However, the contractor should be held responsible for implementing erosion and sediment controls if conditions change. We recommend, at a minimum, construction fence should be installed along the northern property line shared with 121 Grand Ave, and if the existing fence is removed early in construction, along the southern property line shared with 5 Amherst. We recommend the following condition be included in any approval. Quotations, construction activity shall not cause erosion to or sedimentation to the abutting properties and the town right-of-way. End of quote. Board of Health has no issues, it's Seward. Fire Department has no issues. And then we have Concom. 3 Amherst Ave appeared before the Conservation Commission on 6/5/2024. The commission hearing, and they had a hearing and received a negative determination. It was D.H. Martin Engineering that did the site plan. Planning has no comment, and that's all I have.
Good evening for the applicant again.
Tell me. For the record, Kevin Clower. I am representing Tim Gordon, the owner of 3 Amherst Avenue. He's here with us tonight, along with his builder, Mark Melchionda. In the words of Yogi Berra, it is deja vu all over again. As before, this project was before you in January of 2023. It obtained approval, which allowed for modifications to existing non-conforming dwelling. Unfortunately, during the demolition portion of that construction, it was determined that the structure is not sound structurally. The building itself is not structurally sound. So we're back before you to modify that special permit. So rather than modifying the existing structure with an addition, we're seeking to raise and rebuild the non-conforming dwelling on site. It's substantially the same footprint and size as it was previously approved. So 3 Amherst Avenue is located in the eastern portion of the Heights. It is, again, a very dense residential neighborhood. This lot is 3,744 square feet. It is in the Residential C zoning district, and it is in an AE13 flood zone. Presently, there's a 3-bedroom, single-family dwelling with a detached garage. Footprint is 1,531 square feet. As it exists, there is a number of nonconformities. The front yard setback is only 18.1 feet, where 25 is required. The side yard setback to the south is 9.8 feet, where 10 is required. The garage has only a rear yard setback of 0.2 feet, where 10 is required, and a side yard setback of 0.7 feet, where 10 is required. Lot coverage by structure presently is at 40.9%, where 20 is allowed by right, and up to 25 by special permit. And lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking is at 54.6%. So this was previously approved as special permit number 104-22, allowing for the addition of a dormer to the front of the dwelling to improve the existing bedrooms and a small expansion of the second floor to the rear. The previous approval did not affect any of the existing non-conforming setbacks. However, it did reduce the lot coverage by structure. As I mentioned during demolition, the builder came to the determination that the building itself is not structurally sound enough to support the renovation in the addition. So we are proposing to raise and rebuild it. It will be substantially the same design and footprint, but it will be improving on the nonconformities. With the new proposal, the front yard setback is improved slightly. It's 18.1 to 18.4. Side yard setback to the south is also improved slightly. However, it goes from 9.8 to 10.2, which eliminates it as a nonconformity. The lot coverage by structure is reduced even further, from 40.9% down to 29%. And the lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking comes down to 53.8%. The new proposed building will comply with flood zone requirements. Despite the prior approval and the improvements to the nonconformities, this does require a special permit under 240-10.2A and 11.3A4. As I've mentioned previously, 10.2A allows for pre-existing nonconforming structures to be changed by special permit, provided they're not substantially more detrimental. And you're asked to consider whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformity created. The nonconforming setbacks are improved. There's a significant improvement to lot coverage by structure. As to 240-11.3A4, the board is again asked to consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, effects of shadow, impacts on views and vistas from public ways, and the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. We did submit a lot comparison worksheet. This is well below the average footprint and gross floor area. The dwelling as designed is very much in character with the neighborhood, visually and aesthetically. There's a limited impact of shadowing and views and vistas on public ways, just given the nature of this neighborhood. It will be slightly higher. It'll be 26 feet, 11 inches, and that's due to compliance with the flood zone requirements. This is, as we know, a very dense neighborhood at baseline. There is no effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. The bedroom count will remain the same. So this project is going to improve on the existing setbacks. The front yard setback, the side yard setback to the south, reduces the lot coverage, as I mentioned, as well as minor improvements to lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking. There's no new dimensional nonconformities, no adverse effects, and certainly none of the benefits that we've outlined. There's nothing here that's substantially more detrimental than what exists or what was previously approved. This meets the requirements of 240-10.2A, 11.3A4, and 12.1E. I believe that you can and should grant this modification, and I would be happy to address any questions that the board or public may have.
I did fail to mention there's a letter of support.
Board questions. Start with you, Frank.
Mr. Clower, looking at the plans you've submitted, and I also went out and did a site visit, you have an existing garage which is going to stay. But both on the plan and visually when I saw it, it doesn't look like you can use it as a garage.
It was a garage. There was at some point, a deck built in front of it. The deck is actually being removed. It'll be replaced with patio.
Well, okay. Is it going to be resume its existence as a garage, or going to be used for some other purpose?
I think it's basically just recreation space. It's not really used for anything other than storage and...
Okay, now you're reducing the lot coverage by structure, paving, and parking, and I think you're accomplishing that by getting rid of that huge deck in the back. And that's going to be a dry laid patio?
Correct.
All right. And otherwise, we're dealing pretty much with the same footprint, except for a few minor dimensional
It's kind of squared off to
variations.
the street, so it improves the
Yeah, I
setbacks.
noticed you got it squared off to the street. Okay, well, thank you.
Other than I feel sorry for the guy, he got started and he found out he couldn't continue on. It's right around the corner from me, and God bless him. Hope he doesn't run into anything further.
Any plan to convert the garage into habitable space, or otherwise, do you have any issue we condition that, or?
I would have to come back to the board anyways. Whether or not you condition it, that's the case.
I'm all set.
No questions, thank you.
Tony?
No questions.
Public comment. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to close.
Motion to close, Frank, second, Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is closed. No additional testimony will be taken. how would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Motion to approve the conditions. Mark, is there a second?
Second.
Well, I'm going to give that one to Mr. Peterson, he had his hand up. Findings.
Very loud hand.
This was visual reference.
It's in an RC zone. The overlay is Little Pond. Flood zone is AE 13. Square footage 3744. It's on a public road. Existing is 40, well, existing is 40.1 over 55. Proposed is 29.0 over 53.8. I got it right, Kev? Look at me. And now the height, you know how I struggle.
26 feet, 11 inches.
Thank you.
The increase, testimony was that it's to be compliant with FEMA regulations and well under what would be allowed.
There you go. Seward Conservation gave a negative determination. We did have a letter in support. There is a comp sheet. I think that's all I have.
Board issued a previous special permit, 10222. Testimony was that they're back because they cannot salvage the existing dwelling. The nonconformities are being improved. Flood zone compliance in terms of coastal resiliency. No public comment, one letter of support, none in opposition filed. Anything else, finding-wise? No increase on nitrogen because it's on sewer. Conditions.
Garage to be used for storage.
Yeah, testimony was that the garage is used for storage and that they have no plans at this time to convert to habitable space.
All town boards,
All town boards,
Work hours.
work hours,
no other structures,
or plans.
or plans. I think that's it.
Frank, Mark, any additional conditions? Noreen? Tony? Scott? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's a vote.
Thank you.
Moving along, 05224, Cober, 442 Ecopesket Road, East Falmouth, requesting a special permit to construct a detached garage with habitable space above and a pool to be located in the front yard more than 50 feet from the property line, exceeding lot coverage by 20%.
We have John and Kerry Kober, 442 Acapesket Road in East Falmouth, Mass. Apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240.11.4A1I, 240-6.6B, and 240.11.3A4 of the Code of Falmouth to construct a detached garage with habitable space above and pool to be located in the front yard more than 50 feet from the property line, exceeding 20% lot coverage by structures. The subject property is 442 Acapesket. And from town boards, water. The detached garage will need to have an independent water service from the water main to the detached garage. The meter will need to be installed inside the garage and not in a crawl space. If the ZBA approves, please come to the DPW and fill out a water service application. Board of Health. The septic system has a 5-bedroom capacity. There are currently 6 rooms in the home now that are considered bedrooms under Title V. And Falmouth local definition of a bedroom, in quotations, bonus rooms, an office, and 4 labeled bedrooms. The definition of a bedroom is 70 foot by 2, privacy, window, and electric service. Okay, that's all he says. Building department has no comment. Engineering. This application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Acapesket Road is on a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or public rights-of-way. 4, where this site slopes down to the street, but no street permit is required to be filed with DPW engineering. We request that erosion and sediment controls are included for this project to protect the town's downstream stormwater system and the right-of-way. We recommend that the plans be revised to include a demarcated limit of work and include proposed erosion and sediment controls. We recommend the following condition be included. Quotations, construction of this project shall follow the town's soil erosion and sediment control standard conditions. Document can be found on the engineering division's page of the town's website. references to the Department of Public Works Engineering Division shall be replaced with the Zoning Board of Appeals, who would be the permitting of property for this project. Note that this is outside of any conservation requirements for protection of resource areas. That was engineering. Fire department has no issues. Conservation, 442 Acapescat is still before the Conservation Commission and has not yet been approved. The project will appear on the 6/26/2024 hearing. There are no comments at this time. Planning has no comment. Let's see, what is this? I think that's it.
Any correspondence?
No letters, right?
For the applicant, good evening.
Hey, thank you again, Kevin Clower. Was there any update to the health referral from Scott?
That's all, I read everything I have.
Could you fill us in on Concom's comments and the health referral, please?
Sure. I can speak to Health Department. Concom, has that been resolved yet? Yeah, I think they closed the hearing. We're expecting a decision. I don't think it's issued just yet. I am before you tonight representing Jack and Kerry Kober, the owners of 442 Acapescat Road in East Falmouth, seeking permission to build a detached two-car garage with habitable space above. This board has just recently seen similar applications with similar addresses and have been permitted at 384 Acapescat and 237 Acapescat just within the last few months. Here, 442 Acapescat is located towards the southern end of Acapescat Peninsula. It is on the seaward side of the street. The lot is 25,460 square feet, and it is in the RB zoning district. Presently, the main dwelling has 4 bedrooms and 2 additional rooms which meet the definition of bedroom. The septic is designed for 5. The total footprint here is 3,882 square feet. Lot coverage by structure is 15.2%. Currently, it conforms to all setback and lot coverage requirements. The applicant's requesting permission to construct a detached two-car garage with habitable space on the second floor, not to be used as an accessory dwelling. It is specifically not being pursued as that. It's simply additional space, which is overflow space for their adult children, as well as a pool. The proposed garage does require a special permit under 240. Actually, the whole proposal here requires a special permit under 240-11.4A1I, which allows for accessory structures in the front yard, provided they're at least 50 feet from the street. As well as 246.6B, which allows for garage space for more than 2 vehicles, and 240-11.3A4, which allows for lot coverage in excess of 20%. Here, in this case, we're at 20.1%. There's no standards for consideration set forth in the bylaw for an accessory structure in the front yard or for garage space for more than 2 vehicles. So we have to look to the standards of 240-12.1E, which govern all special permit decisions. So this proposal results in lot coverage by structures of just over 5,000 square feet. As I mentioned, it's 20.1%. And lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking of 35.5%. The ridge height of the proposed garage is 22 feet, which is conforming. And the finished space will include 1 additional bedroom, which will be tied into the existing septic. We are aware of the referral from the Health Department. We did speak with Scott McGann, and Mike Borselli previously sent him correspondence. Because the Title V definition specifically states that when the room count in a house exceeds 8, bedrooms shall be determined by counting the total number of rooms excluding bathrooms and hallways and unfinished storage areas, dividing by 2 and rounding down. Under that case, it's actually a 4-bedroom system that's required. So the 5-bedroom system that exists is sufficient to meet this requirement. As I've mentioned, this is not intended as a separate accessory dwelling. It will lack cooking facilities. We'd welcome a condition that would prohibit cooking facilities or the use of this as an ADU until and if it's permitted as such. So the threshold question for an accessory structure in the front yard and the additional garage space under 240-12.1E is, does the proposed use have adverse effects that overbalance its beneficial effects to the neighborhood and the town? This lot is more than adequate in size. It doesn't change the nature of the proposed or existing use. It remains a single-family dwelling. It only increases the owner's utilization. There's no impact on traffic flow or safety. It remains in line with neighborhood character. It does not affect public services. Under 240-11.3A4, again, lot coverage by structure exceeding 20% may be allowed. And the board's asked to consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, effects of shadow, impacts on views and vistas in public ways, and the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. We did prepare a lot comparison worksheet. It's not out of character with the neighborhood. In fact, we're only over 20 lot coverage by only over the 20% lot coverage by 20 square feet. There's very little impact of shadowing of views and vistas from the public ways. It's limited given the location, design, and landscaping. And as I mentioned, there's no effect of nitrogen and coastal abatements, as the existing 5-bedroom septic is sufficient based on Title V definitions. We did speak with a neighbor across the street. They had expressed some initial concern. However, we agreed to plant some additional trees as screening, which are shown on the attached plan. I had not submitted this yet, but I did bring copies to submit tonight. The only change to the plan are the addition of those 3 trees around the garage that you see. So I have those copies to submit. And we agreed not to place any lights on the side of the garage facing the street, and we welcome that as a condition. So with this project, there's no new nonconformities that are created, no existing nonconformities to be affected. There's no adverse effects here, and none that would overbalance the beneficial effects I've described. I believe this meets the requirements for 240.11.4A1I, 6.6B, 11.3A4, and 240.12.1E. I would ask the board issue this special permit, and I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Questions for the boards? Frank, we'll start with you.
Can you describe the pool a little bit more detail? Particularly how deep is it, and what kind of patio, or how will people hang around it?
So it's actually kind of cool. The garage is set up so that the rear of the garage is actually open. So it's open as sort of a pool cabana, and there'll be a small patio that exists between the garage and the pool. The pool itself, we did submit a schematic with our application. So we're showing at the deep end 5.5 feet. It's all shown right here, and that would be the only patio space that would be added.
Okay.
And it is an auto cover pool.
What?
Auto cover pool, which you can have an auto cover pool or a fence surrounding the pool under the building code.
So out of cover, do you slide?
Yes.
It unrolls the cover, okay. Thank you.
Mark?
No, so I was gonna ask if there was a cover, because there's a lot of trees there. But, no, I like it. It's nice.
Suzanne?
I'm just sad to see the maple go.
So there is quite a bit of planting that's going to occur
It's
through
beautiful.
Concom. And so there is, I'm trying to get the exact square footage, but there's quite a bit of mitigation planting that will be occurring. So there's lots of trees going back in here.
I can still be sad.
We can go over and hug the new
I won't take that away from you.
I'll go over and hug the new trees. There you go.
Scott?
Yes.
Sorry to make you go through it again. Just walk me through the septic and the bedrooms again one more time, please.
Yep. So what it actually, the Title V definition, what it specifically says is where the total number of rooms for a single-family dwelling exceeds 8, not including bathrooms, hallways, unfinished cellars, and unheated storage areas. The number of bedrooms presumed shall be calculated by dividing the total number of rooms by 2, then rounding down to the next lowest number. So what we had sent to Scott, and I'm surprised we didn't get a referral back from him, was Mike Borselli sent a rather detailed email, but we included a breakdown of the rooms, and typically when the rooms are open like this, they only count as one room. I've gone through this exercise with Scott quite a few times, but what we end up with, not counting bathrooms, hallways, garage space, is a total of 9 rooms here. So divided by 2 and rounding down, that's a 4-bedroom septic would be sufficient. We actually have a 5-bedroom septic.
That schematic helps. Thank you.
Anything else? Tony?
No, that answered my question.
And I do want to point out, health will still have to sign off on a building permit, so it's not as though this is it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else? Public comment? Sir?
It goes to Christmas past.
My name's Paul Murphy. I live at 15 Bog Street, and I am in a butter. I did receive notice, so in theory I have standing. I think this is thoughtfully done. They've designed the pool to go behind the garage. You've got a 51-foot front yard setback, which is substantial. That's way back from the street. There's a lot of screening along Acapesket Road. I'm very familiar with it. And I think this meets the standards of the bylaw. I think it's a great design. They've made a lot of effort in terms of making sure that plantings are in place, and they've reached out to their abutters. I think it's a great project. And I look forward, I hope that the board approves the application as submitted. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comment? Seeing none. Oh, revised plans.
Stamp.
Stamp those on it. How would the board like to proceed?
I'm busy stamping.
Motion to close.
Motion to close. Mr. Finner, is there a second?
Second.
Peterson has a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing is closed. No more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Motion approved with conditions. Scott, is there a second?
Second.
Second to Ms. Murphy. Findings.
Findings, let's see, it's in an RB zone, overlay district Green Pond, flood zone AE 12, AE 15, lot size 25,460, it's on a public road. Existing is 15 over 32.9, and proposed is 20.1 over 37.3. Septic is for 5. There is a comp sheet. What else do we have here? That's it for findings. It's a 240, if we list them all.
Placement of the pool in the front yard is necessitated by the existence and placement of the building and the presence of Green Pond. Testimony is that it's going to, the pool will be auto cover, so there will not be fencing required around it for state regulations. Testimony from the applicant that there was a neighbor who was concerned, but the concerns have been addressed, and there's an agreement to put additional plantings in place.
New sliding.
Lot is suitable. Offsets and setbacks from the public way are appropriate. No opposition filed or at the hearing. One abutter spoke in support. Any additional findings? Conditions?
Definitely Board of Health.
Per plans, not to exceed 5 bedrooms, need independent water service to the garage, erosion sediment controls, all town referrals, all Concom conditions. Testimony was that Concom closed on 6/26, but a decision was not in the file. Anybody on the board not comfortable approving?
Just to clarify, I don't think.
We're not taking additional testimony.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we can
Concom decision is pending.
Yes.
Leave that. Of course, they'll have to live with it.
No lights on the garage.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Condition, yeah, no lighting on the side, dark sky compliant lighting on the garage. And any additional
I want
conditions?
a letter from Health, though, for the bedroom thing.
Well, they have to, yeah, they can't,
Yeah.
they have
The
to get
file,
the
at
permits.
least.
Yeah.
You can't go forward without that.
Right. Condition not to exceed 5 bedrooms. So, Noreen, anything else? Good. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. You're done with me tonight, so thank you.
You all done, Kev?
For the moment.
He's gonna need a nap.
He's tired now.
I'm gonna go get a sip of water.
Continuing on, 05424 McLaughlin, 0 Lot 014, 88 and 110 Scranton Avenue, requesting a modification of special permit number 02316 to expand the existing restaurant onto adjoining lots.
All right, we have Connor McLaughlin, manager of Pier 37 Boathouse, 110 Scranton Ave. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification of a special permit 02316 pursuant to sections 240-64B and 240-102A, the Code of Falmouth, to expand the existing restaurant use onto adjoining lots. The subject property are 0, Lot 014, 88 and 110 Scranton Avenue in Falmouth. And from town boards, see what we have. Water has no comment. Assessors, plans will need to be reviewed by the planning board and merged into one parcel, lots 35D2 and 14. Assessors cannot assess one project on multi-parcels. Health, wastewater, property on town sewer, so we defer to the wastewater division. Food safety, any expanse or changes to the food service operation, in quotations, new prep areas, new venues, etc., need to be reviewed and approved by the Board of Health if not done so previously. And then we have conservation, which is miles long. We have an order of conditions from conservation. And we have conservation still, it's approved. Many pages. Engineering, here we are. The application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Scranton Ave is on a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. Any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public properties, abutters, or public rights-of-way. 4, based on the parking calculations on the plan, 258 parking spaces are required, and 258 are shown on the plan. We defer to the board if valet spaces are acceptable. 5, all other parking spaces are the required, are all the parking spaces the required minimum width and length? We defer to the board if additional information is required. 6, are all drive aisles the required minimum width? We defer to the board again if additional information is required. 7, based on the 258 parking spaces provided, 7 accessible parking spaces are required and 6 are shown on the plan. Note that 1 space is indicated to be designated accessible until 5 p.m. when the use is converted to valet. So there will be 5 accessible spots after 5. We defer to the board if adequate accessible spaces are provided. Number 8, based on the 7 accessible parking spaces provided, 1 van accessible parking space is required. The plans do not include dimensions on the loading areas next to the accessible parking spaces. However, it appears that 1 space at the front of the restaurant may qualify as a van accessible space. We defer to the board if any additional information is required. And that's engineering. Building says roughly the same kind of thing about handicap spots. And that's all we have on here.
Any correspondence from abutters?
I did, no, nothing, do we have abutters? No. And note, I did watch planning, and they were merged this week at planning.
For the applicant, good evening.
Good evening, members of the board and Mr. Chairman. My name, for the record, is Anthony Tsakalos, and I'm an attorney at Ament Clower LLP, a law firm here in town. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant Connor McLaughlin, who is here with me tonight. Connor's the manager of the Pier 37 Boathouse Restaurant, and his father, Brian McLaughlin, owns 110 Scranton Avenue and 0 Scranton Avenue, also known as Lot 14, in his individual capacity. Brian McLaughlin is also president and treasurer of Falmouth Pier 37 Incorporated, which owns 88 Scranton Avenue, where the restaurant is currently located. All 3 lots are located in the Marine Zoning District between Scranton Ave and Falmouth Inner Harbor, and collectively constitute 105,400 square feet in lot area, which are broken down by lot on the site plan, along with lot coverage tabulations. The applicant was issued a special permit by the zoning board back in 2016 to allow the restaurant use in the marine zone on 88 Scranton Ave, and now seeks to modify the existing special permit to expand the restaurant use onto the adjacent lots at number 110 and lot 14, and to include the exterior areas of lot 14 for parking and the exterior portion of the dwelling at number 110 as part of the overall site. After filing the application to modify the special permit, we received the assessing department's referral stating that all 3 lots needed to be combined to make the proposed arrangement possible. Attorney Kevin Clower and I met with Tricia Favuli of the assessing department and explained to her that no part of the structure on 88 Scranton crosses the property line onto either 110 or lot 14. Ms. Favuli then agreed that only 110 Scranton and Lot 14 needed to be combined, and for zoning and assessing purposes only, by way of an A&R plan endorsed by the planning board and by delivering to the town a covenant to combine the lots, which we've sent to town council. The lots were merged by operation of law due to being adjacent non-conforming lots in common ownership, and the A&R plan and covenant are intended to memorialize that. Regarding the A&R plan, Attorney Clower represented the applicant at the planning board hearing this past Tuesday, and the board indicated that it will endorse the proposed plan that combined the two lots into a Lot 14A. The applicant has also addressed all concerns that the Conservation Commission had regarding compliance with the existing order of conditions. Connor, myself, and Tom Bunker of BSS Design, who is also here, met with Conservation Agent Jen Lincoln about a month ago to discuss all that was required to bring the site back into compliance with the OOC. And Connor just informed Jen Lincoln today that all required work was completed and that the site's ready to be inspected by Conservation. I also previously met with Building Commissioner Gary Street to discuss the site plan. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application. Mr. Bunker has produced a revised site plan, which I'll put on the screen for you in a moment, showing the parking spaces all where Mr. Street would like to see them, near the the handicap accessible ramp at the entry of the restaurant. Connor and I also have a meeting scheduled with Gary Street on the 16th to go over the updates to the site plan. And beyond that, we're happy to address any questions the board may have and the public may have.
Questions from the board? Tony, I'll start with you.
This is a great plan to start with, I'll tell you. Just tell me, under 246.5C, special permit additional standards, subparagraph 1, I'm not sure I understand exactly how that applies here. I can't read it on the plan, how many square feet are being used, or even if this applies. So my question is 240-6.5C, subparagraph 1, non-marine related uses or structures shall not exceed 25% of the lot area. Does this even apply here?
We don't think that it necessarily applies. The existing restaurant is this structure here. There's also an existing building here, number 88, and 98 is not included here. So we don't think that it's going to be an issue as far as that bylaw goes.
So the calculation that I don't see on the plan would be that it does not exceed 25% of the lot area, what you're proposing.
Correct.
All right, so there's no new structures that are going to do that.
There's no new structures, correct.
All right, I have no other questions.
Scott?
Some of the open questions that the clerk had outlined, food safety, so there is no food prep that's going to happen in, is that correct, or?
Well, there is going to be an outdoor kitchen area on lot 110.
Okay, so Board of Health's aware of?
Correct. We'll be getting all, approvals from the Board of Health as well.
Okay.
I'll pull up the other
On
plan.
Concom, the deck was larger than proposed, so that has been corrected? Is that what you had mentioned?
Yeah, that's correct. And Concom is going to be inspecting very shortly, we anticipate.
Okay. And then the 7 accessible parking spaces?
Yes, so this is the updated plan. It hasn't been stamped yet. Mr. Bunker's here to answer any questions particular to the site plan and lot calculations and whatnot, but you can see the parking spaces here are all now handicap spaces, and a van accessible spaces right here.
Okay.
With a enlarged loading zone.
Thank you. No further questions.
Suzanne?
Can you address the parking again? Because it's,
The handicap parking?
yeah, and are you gonna stripe in front of that 110? It's kind of,
Yeah, feel free.
I'm sorry, Connor McLaughlin, manager,
Hi.
Panthers Open Boathouse, hello. So just so we're aware that the parking and everything, we have barrels set up on 110 Scranton Avenue as they've been. It's a dirt lot, it's all non-paved there, so we've made it clear where parking is, but they're not delineated with, at one point we were doing chalk lines every couple days, trying to keep up with, trying to have that be the case, but we put these giant orange barrels that we fill with water, and we have delineated parking spaces there
I
up
have
the
an
whole
image that
side.
shows those barrels as well, if you'd like to see them.
None of this, all of this, the reason why we came into the space was through the COVID seating protocol, and this was that's how we had sat there, and then learned that it was actually, didn't realize that we were on a property line there, because it's been in the family for a long time. So I just didn't realize that, and then this kind of rose to this thing. But we're not changing any of the parking spaces or capacity or anything with the restaurant. It was just trying to use the area that was, used to be sloped grass into the thing that we recreated this land for. So to answer your question, that the parking spaces remain the same they were before, since 2016. But we've done some improvements, adding light posts, cameras, and orange barriers to delineate where the middle line is for the parking spaces directly down the middle of 110 and 0 Scranton Avenue.
Well, in the letters I read, it looks like they're looking for one more accessible spot.
So we in front of the restaurant where you see the 7 parking spaces, we recently this year, just a couple weeks ago, blacked, like, I don't know what you call it, sealed the asphalt all in front of the restaurant, that entire square, and then restriped and painted everything. So all 7 are delineated now correctly, the way it shows in the plan here, and repainted.
Correct, and this is the revised site plan. This is the board has not seen this particular site plan that's on the screen right now. If you'll count them, there are 7
Okay.
spaces
I
as,
went there and I thought I counted 6, but it must have been 7.
it was the prior plan.
The only spaces that aren't delineated are on dirt, because we just haven't done them.
That's right, and if the board would like to see the images of the barrels that Connor was just referring to, these are what delineate the parking on the gravel.
And is that, like they said in here, is the van accessible one, the closest one to the front door?
Yes, actually, the van accessible space is, so these
I
are
think it's in
all,
the area that you just
Yeah, the extreme right.
tagged, yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So
Okay,
That's all black.
good.
the handicap ramp is right here. This is the van space right here, directly in front of it, and all the other handicap spaces are just right next to it.
Thanks.
How many additional seats are you putting on the outside now?
Additional seating?
Yes.
There's going to be no changing to seating right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just the use and location?
correct.
Mark?
I saw the new handicap spaces there, the 7 with the van, it was adequate. I just questioned whether there should be one over further to the right to service that, but you have the 7 that you're required, so I guess it's only a suggestion. Other than that, I have no issues.
Frank?
Looking at the plan that you submitted, there's a couple of lots here. One is shown as Lot D2.
That's 110 Scranton Avenue, yes.
Okay, that's because the building there is number 110,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's Lot 14, which is a former right-of-way.
No, the former right-of-way was between, it is this strip here, between Lot D2 and 88 Scranton Ave, and that right-of-way has been extinguished through land court.
Okay, that was
Yeah, it
my
doesn't-
question.
it
It's
doesn't
been
exist.
Been extinguished, all right, thank you. So the planning board allowed you to merge by covenant, is that what you did?
By A&R plan.
By A and R plan and covenant, okay.
Correct.
Lot D2 and Lot 14.
That's right.
So they are now 14A.
That's right.
Okay. So, next to the building on lot, next to the building known as number 110, you have a restaurant seating area with about 10 tables and whatever. How is that a separate restaurant from the regular restaurant? It's separated by quite a distance.
It's not a separate restaurant, it's just used after the restaurant at 88 closes as a bar lounge. So it's all the same
Well,
facility,
if you sit
essentially.
at a table out here and order food, where does it come from?
So you're talking about these seatings?
Yeah, he's talking about the outdoor seating.
So where it says on the plan, outdoor kitchen, and in front of it, the kitchen, container kitchen, that was all done, this is all, we did this in 2020 and have done it the last few years, up until last year. We had wood fire pizza ovens there. And the kitchen container, everything was prepped and stored and then covered in, like you get at a hotel, a pan with a tray, brought it out to the oven, put right in the oven there. And that's where we only had pizza in this section here for those tables. We weren't making people carry from the actual restaurant in the kitchen, is too far, as you're saying, to service customers over there. So we were just doing pizza and service from the bar here, for those seats and parcel.
Okay. So what you're asking then is to take the existing special permit and allow this restaurant area on the new lot 14A.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just the.
But how long has that restaurant section there, the 10 tables and chairs, been there without the benefit of a special permit?
They were there for a few years under the COVID
I
2020
did under-
protocols. The town, I believe, last year informed Mr. McLaughlin that he didn't have the right to do that. Nobody had caught it, and Connor didn't realize that he didn't have the right to do that either. So that's essentially why we're here, is to correct the issue.
Just for the purpose of the record and clarify Mr. Duffy's point, there was an enforcement order from the building commissioner regarding this, and there was a suggestion through town council at the time that due to the COVID regulations, that the enforcement order be stayed to April of this year. So there was never a finding of any violation, zoning or otherwise.
Okay, that answers my question, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we applied for everything, and we got electrical permits, everything for the work over there. I had no idea that it was not allowed until later.
All right, another question. There was a comment from the DPW, I think, about valet parking. Is there any valet parking on this property?
Yes, there is. Valet parking is actually taking place in these blocked areas here. Any number that's related.
I can't tell
relative to-
what you're talking about. What, can you?
Where the arrow was.
Oh, yes.
Bottom left.
Here.
Yes,
Oh,
the space is
okay.
there.
This is all valet parking here. This is valet parking here. These are valet parking here. Any number relative to parking with a square around it is valet parking.
So basically, if you look on the plan, I'll just see if I can get you closer. So this break in this asphalt work, it's now right here. This is, if you're familiar with the property, anything past this is where the boats, the racks are and things like
Yes.
that. And so that's where we were having a valet, leave your car here, have a valet, bring it into this area to park it down by these boats, right here, along where these 11 spaces are in these spaces, because it's just, we'd prefer not to have customers driving too close to those boats, obviously, with the assets that are there. So we do our best to just have them. And so these extra parking spaces are only accessible by valet.
All right, thank you. That's my questions.
Additional follow-up questions? Public comment? Seeing none.
Motion closed.
Motion to close. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing is closed. No further testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed? Would the board like to have a little discussion, given that there's some open matters, or is the board satisfied that they've been addressed?
I'm satisfied.
Is that sewer line been addressed? I see correspondence back and
I'm not sure if it's
forth.
get wrapped up with wastewater super. That-
Pardon me?
Hearing's closed, so we can't go back and forth.
Yeah,
Well, I'll have to comply regardless with health or wastewater, so. What's the board's feeling? I mean, I was a little concerned initially with the open Concom. Do we want to condition subject to approval, or do we want to wait for Concom to give us something back that says they've resolved these issues?
you also have the building commissioner, right, that they have a pending meeting with.
Yeah, that's my question. Does the board want to proceed, or they want to perhaps wait till the open matters have been completely resolved?
I'd say
See why
proceed.
we shouldn't continue pending their decision, right? So they can just get to work.
Well, we're not going to be doing any work. It's all done.
Yeah, it's all done anyway.
So,
I mean,
Well, he's got to go to Board of Health, he's got stuff to do still.
Just comply with any condition of the board, of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
subject to.
How would the board like to proceed then?
Motion approved with conditions?
Motion approved with conditions. Scott, second Suzanne. All right. Findings.
Findings, classes. It's in the Marina District, Falmouth and Harbor Overlay, AE 15, 14, and 13. There was one previous special permit in 16. Lot size, 29,100 and 9,300. equaling 1.5. It's on a public road. It's sewered. Between two, I'm trying to read all this, my stuff in here. We have approvals from boards, and that's all I have.
Testimony and requirement of 258 parking spots. Plan
258,
calls for
yeah.
258. Lot, as originally proposed, sits on several lots. Testimony was that they received planning board approval to merge the lots as per the referral.
7 handicap?
Seven handicap accessible, including 1 van space. We put that as a condition.
There was valet.
Testimony that there is valet parking on parts of the lot. Correspondence concerning noncompliance with existing Concom order of conditions. Testimony from the applicant is that they've, in the process of resolving those, we can condition that.
Right.
One previous enforcement order was cease and desist from the building inspector that was stayed by this board through April of this year. There's been no sustained violations of any zoning conditions. No opposition at the hearing, none in the file. No one speaking in support. Any other findings?
All Board of Health.
Yeah, conditions?
Yeah.
Must
yeah.
obtain all Board of Health approvals, any additional license requirements from the town concerning food service or common victualler or liquor. Concom, yeah, obtain Concom approval.
And the Board of Health will tackle in a sewer connection. Okay.
Yes, wastewater.
No additional seating?
Testimony was no additional seating, it's just literally authorizing the outdoor placement of tables. Maureen, anything else?
I want to thank you for clarifying that issue about the stay order, which we did months ago,
Yeah.
because when we did it, I don't think we really had all the details of what we were staying.
Well, my recollection was, yeah, the building inspector said you're not permitted for outdoor seating, but the
But the
governor, through the emergency proclamation of COVID, said, well, we're going to let people be outside.
And then the building commissioner also agreed to the stay himself, right? So therefore, if the building commissioner agrees to a stay of his own order, we don't really care what it
It's a happy
says.
resolution for everybody. Any other conditions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, last under new hearings this evening is 05824, 85 Brick Kiln LLC at 85 Brick Kiln Road, East Falmouth, requesting a comprehensive permit to construct 40 units throughout 9 duplex buildings and 2 multi-unit buildings, 1 building with 10 units and 1 with 12 units. 10 units will be affordable.
Okay, we have Brick Kiln LLC at 150 Timothy Bonacott Way in East Falmouth, Mass. To apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a comprehensive permit pursuant to Chapter 40B to construct 40 units throughout nine duplex buildings and 2 multi-unit buildings, and 1 building with 10 single units and 1 with 12 units, 10 units will be affordable. The subject property is 85 Brick Kiln Road in East Falmouth, Mass. And I've received letters from Planning, Fire, Health, the Cape Cod Commission, the Assessors, Housing Coordinator, and Engineering, and I have 1 letter of concerns. That's it.
Procedurally, I see a lot of people still in the audience, this will not be an approval tonight. This is essentially the opening hearing of a comprehensive permit. I anticipate that the applicant is going to make a presentation overall of what is anticipated going in, but there will be significant vetting as well as additional opportunity to comment tonight, but we'll be happy to listen to anyone who has concerns. For the applicant, good evening.
Good evening. Nick Marioni for the applicant. The project's located 85 Brick Kiln Road. There's quite a lengthy driveway coming in. There's 40 units total. 22 will be studios, 4 will be 3-bedroom, and the other 16 will be, the rest of the units will be, 14 will be 2-bedroom units. All the units are with full basements, except the studio buildings, They'll be on slabs, and they'll be sprinkled. We're providing garages for storage for those units. There's, the requirement is two parking spaces per unit for the 2- and 3-bedroom units, 1.5 for the studios. We think that the 1.5's heavy for the studios, but we have adequate parking with 5, if you use those numbers, we have 5 extra spaces for guests. Showing a mailbox location down here, the owner's maintenance building, trash and recycle. At the beginning, we're putting a little turnout here for the cars to wait with the kids for the buses in the morning. From experience, we're seeing that that's what happens. The bus shelters don't get used. The parents sit with the kids in the car in the morning waiting for the bus. And the same thing in the night. In the afternoon, they sit there and wait for them to get off the bus. You'll notice in the application, we made mention that we're asking a waiver for the denitrification because we're in a coastal pond overlay district. And I made an error and put that the sewer line was Acapesket Road because I had done that in the previous application. The sewer line is coming by this site as part of the Acapesket Road sewer. We're trying to set up a meeting with Amy Lowell. We're not going to be allowed to connect to it for quite some time because they don't have the capacity at the treatment plant. But that line is part of what's going down Acapesket Road to bring the Acapesket sewer to the treatment plant. Sometime in the future, when they get the approval to expand the treatment capacity, we'll be allowed to connect to that, but we have no idea when that's going to be. But town water, underground utilities, we intend to provide the heating for the units by electric heat. And we're looking into solar where that'll work to help reduce the cost. I'll be happy to take questions from the board.
Board questions at this time? Frank?
Is there any public transportation for this property?
There is no public transportation that goes directly by the property, no. But as you know, the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority has Dial-A-Ride. So if you need a ride, you can call and get one at their, when they get there.
I was curious about the garages, but I think you may have answered the question in your presentation. Are they for the benefit of the residents in the studio apartments?
Yes,
And so they're not really garages, they're storage sheds.
correct, yes.
And how are you going to separate, you get 10 studios in one and 12 in another? How are people going to separate their goods from their neighbors so everything doesn't get commingled and mixed up?
We'll more than likely have to do little cages within the garages, you know, chicken wire areas with unit numbers on them.
Well, I had another question about the school bus. You've kind of answered it. I'm not sure it's totally adequate, but at least you've answered it. So that's my questions for now, but I think as we go along and we get more information and we get our peer reviews, we'll have more.
I'm sure. We haven't addressed signage or anything yet, so again, that stuff will all come up as we proceed with our landscape plan and buffering plans and things, so.
Anything else, Frank?
Not right now.
Mark?
Your statement that past experience indicates that you don't need a bus shelter. I look at that and I see some poor kid whose mother had to go to work early, standing out in the rain. To be honest with you, I think you might not need a large bus shelter, but a small one might be considered. Don't you think that's possible?
I appreciate the comment. Yeah.
Frank, it's something else?
Yeah, I had another question that I failed to ask. Just looking at the layout of this property, it looks to me like it could be a nightmare to snowplow. And have you got any area here set aside to pile up the snow?
Most of it'll be in the middle here, I imagine. If we get a big snowstorm, on most of these tight projects, we need to bring in a bobcat and move the snow by bobcat, not with a plow. The plow can make the pass down the street, but most times we have to clear the parking areas with a bobcat and just bring it somewhere else, on site. The owner of this project does his own plowing and has the bobcat, and that's one of the reasons for the garage, to put equipment in there on this garage for the owner's equipment.
So you're planning on putting the snow in the back of a dump truck and taking it
No.
somewhere else?
No, we're just picking it up with a bobcat and moving it to a place where we can store it, for instance, here, or over here, you know, wherever we can put it if we need to do that.
Any follow-up?
I drove around there today, picked up some brush too, but the snow did occur to me, but whatever. Might be difficult, but, you know, that's all I got for the moment. But the bus shelter thing is a genuine concern.
So looking through the referrals, I'm sure you saw the fire department's going to require an additional fire hydrant going in. A little concerned, you're pretty dense. What is the plan going to be in terms of storage or storage area for bikes and things for the non-studio units? We run into this with every one of these 40Bs where afterwards everyone's coming back for a shed. And we're pretty dense as is in terms of building placement. What's going to be the plan for people to store if they have a lawnmower, if they have garden tools, if they've got bicycles?
Well, they won't have a lawnmower because we'll be cutting the grass. But if they have bicycles, they can either store them in the basement or put them on their patios and well, we provide them with a basement that's got a cement wall between their unit and the one next to them, so it's all theirs. So it's been working in other projects, so.
Where's the kids' play area? Under the snow?
No, the three-bedroom units are gonna be in the corners, and they're gonna have the biggest yards. That's why we put them in the corners, because they have more space behind them to have a backyard. But other than that, there is no play area.
So that's your
provided
only
for-
green space, three
No,
backyards?
there's green space out here, but it wasn't designed or intended as, it's just sort of a common area. You know, it's not really designed as a play area.
40Bs are generally supposed to have some sort of open space.
It has open space, it's just not designed for
It-
play.
Designed for
gathering.
recreation, it says in mass housing.
It's more for gathering than it is for playing. In other words, there'll be benches and seating areas, but not like a playground with basketball courts or anything like that.
Okay, and my other major problem with this is the design. I mean, it looks worse than the base. I mean, I feel like I lived in Bourne, and I feel like I'm back when I'm a kid again, driving through the base, when I looked at these buildings. The studio ones, they're not designed very attractively. How's that?
I disagree. I think they're designed fine for what they are, and they're not as big as you're picturing them. It's, you know, the biggest building is like 6,500 square feet. That's like a duplex garrison or something. It's, you know, we have some, there were some comments made on the town and mass housing site walk. Excuse me a second. That was what that end building would look like as you were coming up the street. So what we did is we took a location. First of all, we don't even think you'll barely see it from Brick Hill Road.
Yeah, but it's just
But as you're coming up the driveway to the project, and you get to this point, and you're looking right at the end of that building, that's what you'll see. It's not some massive building that you're picturing there. You knock it down with some landscaping, you have the garage that breaks up some of the view, there's the stairs that come down from the back stairway on the second floor.
Why are there no windows?
It's just the way it's designed, there's no windows on that end of the building, on either end of the building, for that matter. The windows are in the back and the front.
That's where the breeze comes from in the summertime. Southwest.
Air-conditioned units.
I already did see that there's been work going on when I drive by every day.
It's not, the work's not going on our property. They're parking the vehicle in the driveway because he's working on a property next door. The only work we've done on the property is to brush cut enough of an area so the engineers could stake the center line of the road and the building corners that's required for staking for the ZBA, so that you could get out there and see what we had staked.
Well, somebody dumped a couple of yards of gravel in a pile.
It's not for work on our site. The contractor that dumped that stuff there happens to be working on the site next door, and he's using our driveway to store his materials, store his vehicles and his materials. There's no tree cutting, there's no work being done on our site.
Well, excuse me, sir, this is not a back and forth from the audience, thank you.
So we're not working on the site, that's what I'm saying. We're not working on our site. We know we can't work yet, we don't have permission to work,
Well,
other than
shouldn't other
protests.
people not be allowed to work too if you can't?
They're not working on our site. We can park on our site, we're not clearing any trees to
Enforcement matters and
park.
non-compliance need to go to the building inspector, as the zoning and compliance enforcement
Okay.
officer. So, it's a pretty good question, though. Anything else?
No, I guess not.
Could you show us an elevation, and looking at your conceptual site plan, to Suzanne's chagrin, I have the same issue. You, I believe, need to think through a lot more of your elevation. That's not in keeping what I would think that a developer would want to do here on Cape Cod. I understand your cost structure and what you're trying to do. You do a lot of 40Bs, and I think that you should, and hopefully through our peer review with the architectural review, that you can come up with something that's a little bit more receptive to the people who live there, not necessarily from somebody driving by Brook Hill Road. But we'll have the architecture peer review to give us some additional guidance.
Comment well taken, we will look at that. We did, on the other plan I showed you, somewhere along the line, we had sent in a revised plan that showed dormers here to break up that front. So we will try and work on the elevations, but please remember that we're constricted somewhat by a budget on these things, so.
I understand that's a good canned response, but it would be nice if you, as I say, we'll have the architectural review done by our peer reviewer, but I appreciate you thinking about changes already. Thank you.
Tony?
I agree with Suzanne and Scott. I brought this up on your Ecopescid project as well. You gave the same answer. We'll look into it. We'll see if you've looked into it. But this is like driving through Otis Air Base. I know that you've got issues with cost. I know cost quite well. I also know that your architect seems to be stuck on one type of plan. I drove through what you did at 123 Brick Hill, and you didn't even take the time to wrap the 4x4 posts that support the overhangs. I mean, there's no cost to doing that, but it's sloppy. And I don't think the people that need affordable housing, I think they deserve better than what you're providing to them when they come home. I agree with Scott, we need to have architectural review on this and others, because you can do a better job. And you can do a better job for the people, and you can do it within your cost requirements. These are pretty inexpensive projects, but you can't keep doing this to the people here in town. You gotta create some legacy. I know you're a consultant on this, but we're gonna have to do better on that. My second, and I think that, I hope you take us seriously with this, because we're gonna push this. My second issue is you're asking for a waiver, and I won't get too nitty-gritty on this, for Great Pond overlay. We just heard you tell us, and I knew this, that the Acapesca sewer line is going to come by the property, but you cannot connect to it. In the meantime, you want to put a Title V septic system in. Do you believe that you would have the room, if required by the Board of Health, to put an IA system in, a denitrification system in? In other words, you're tightly packed. You've used up just about every area you can use. If you were required to put an IA system in, something between the D box and the rest of the system, could you do it? Can you create that space? Because you may have to.
We actually show it on the plan.
See, I couldn't see it.
I'll bring up that site plan.
It could be many years before you get a chance to hook up to the sewer system.
And capacity-wise, it may be
Actually,
Never.
even further.
Maybe
right,
never.
Right.
actually, I lost it. Is this me over here? Yeah, okay, sorry. No, that's not me.
I think you're at the bottom.
Let me see it on there. Oh, that's color.
Thank you.
Where'd you get that? Oh, in that thing, yeah. I never think to look.
Section D.
Okay.
While you're finding that, so you're under 10,000 gallons per day on this project?
Yes,
You don't need
I
a-
have it here, I'm
You
sorry.
don't go to DEP for a wastewater treatment plant. Is there any chance, Mr. Chairman, that we could have the Board of Health just come here and explain how this might work?
Yeah, we can, it's certainly within the board's purview to request additional information from town boards or to ask, for example, the wastewater super to come and comment, or the Board of Health, the health agent to come and comment.
I'm gonna suggest and recommend to this board that we ask them to come here, not just comment in writing, and so that we can each ask the questions that I know need to be asked. Because with every answer will be 3 more questions potentially. This is a very, very serious nitrogen-loading sensitive area, and we can't just keep putting these things in without being concerned about drinking water and water quality in this town. So I did now see where you did put some space in for the IA.
And we would welcome that, Board of Health coming here to talk about it, because they could explain
Yes,
much better than we can why this is okay.
that's
Why
exactly
we
what I
could
think
get
we
the
need,
word.
because
Both of them.
we're not
It'd help
professionals
us.
on this, and we don't, I'm going to speak for myself. I am not a professional on septic systems. I don't understand how you're going to protect the overlay district with what you're putting in. I don't understand what the town is going to require you to do when you go for a permit. And I think this board should hear that so that we can do our part with regard to the Great Pond Overlay District. And I'll just finish up by saying, I'm going to keep coming back, I hope other members do too, to the architectural design for this. And I hope you take that seriously.
I take it very seriously, and I'd also like to just comment on what you said. You pointed out Brick Hill Place, 123 Brick Hill
123.
Road. Different builder. Please go look at 10 Rebecca Ann. That's the same builder, Dan McClone.
Which one said it again?
10 Rebecca Ann Lane. We did 10 units there that are they're the same as these duplex buildings for the 2 bedrooms here. And completely different look and what your comments relate to quality.
I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope you just take all of that seriously. Thank you.
Before we turn this over to some public
I
yes.
got one. Can you go back to the picture of the studios? They're the 2-story. Yeah. You said those were on a slab, but there's a bulkhead there.
Yeah, these are not final plans. These are drafts. We looked at that, putting the basements in there, then decided against it. didn't change the architectural. We're opening a public hearing here, we're not trying to get final approval.
Well,
So we have a lot more work
Yeah,
to do with elevation changes and plan
Right.
changes.
Well, it obviously sticks out. You don't need a bulkhead if you're on a slab.
Right. And one of the thoughts too is to put the sprinkler room down there, but now we're gonna put an addition on, which isn't shown yet either, where we're putting the sprinkler room for that. So that'll all come out in the next version of the plans,
Oh, I think,
after we hear these comments.
yeah, okay, you
some
certainly
changes.
should consider some of the other comments,
Yeah.
windows and such.
And you notice we don't have any landscape plan in here yet, in
No.
this package.
Well, there's some,
Well, that was just an illustrative site plan.
yeah.
The actual landscape and buffering plan will come out later, where we spell out the plants and the fence area to buffer for the neighbors. We have met with the neighbors to at least open up the lines of communication so that we can work with them.
Well, and being such a compact site, I hope you put a lot of thought into the landscape, because there are going to be children there, and there really isn't, as Suzanne pointed out, a great deal of space for them to occupy
We'll have to look at
themselves.
that too, so. We'll look at everything that's being commented on here tonight, so.
You listen, I understand.
Before we turn this over to public comment, a couple procedural things with 40Bs. I just want to make sure we don't omit. Obviously, we're going to need some peer review on a project like this. So I suggest peer review, at the very least, with engineering, that we request the applicant to fund the account.
What about traffic?
That's what I just brought up.
I don't know if 40 units is going to be enough to trigger it. I'll defer to Noreen, or if it's something that we could ask for a referral from DPW regarding sightlines, their engineer.
I just worry about Oxbow itself. That hole in front of the winery is dangerous. It's right there. I mean,
The whole area is congested.
Mr. Chairman, I would certainly like to see us get some architectural review on this.
Yep.
And I just think it's important.
Could we see a slide of the duplexes? We've seen the studios, but we haven't seen the duplex yet. I'd like it explained.
Let's ask for it.
This is the two-bedroom duplex.
doesn't get one.
We have front and side elevation there.
How many windows in those places? There doesn't seem to be too many in the...
And in the back of the building, there's
Oh, yeah, I guess.
another kitchen window right over the sink and a door. Ready for the three-bedroom?
Yeah.
Three-bedroom is similar, except you can see that there's a dormer in the back for the third bedroom upstairs, which, so there's a stairway in the living room. Because this is the third bedroom upstairs, the storage room. This says living room, but it's just a look down into the living room below. This line here shows the balcony line. So the stairs go up to this little landing, bedroom, storage closet. And the reason the doors are tight like that, because it came up in another hearing, was because we split the bedrooms to keep them from being back to back. So to do that, we're putting the living room here, and it makes more sense to put the doors next to each other. But you all right with that now, Frank?
Yeah.
Getting back to the peer review, I think the board's consensus is that we're looking for peer review with traffic, architectural, and engineering.
One more thing, I don't know how it's done, but I'd like to be able to get the Board of Health here
And Amy Lowell.
and Amy Lowell from wastewater.
And we can certainly, during the course of the hearings, request either come or submit detailed. As always, if the board has specific questions they want, just please submit them through the town administrator. She'll obtain answers.
So
Or
Noreen,
responses.
on those, bringing in the Board of Health and Amy, we should wait for Peter. We should wait for Peter.
Here?
Peer review comments.
Not necessarily.
Think so?
I mean, I think, they can certainly address the general issues,
Okay.
which is, do you need, is a regular septic sufficient type of thing? So I think it would be fine for them to come.
Okay, so you can just set that up, okay.
I think it takes, if you don't mind, I think it takes more than just some written comments. I know that I will have many, many questions of the Board of Health and wastewater treatment that aren't gonna be answered just one time on a piece of paper. If we can get them here, it would be very helpful.
No, I think we can certainly make a request. We can't compel their attendance, but
No,
I
I
agree. They're the
understand
subject matter experts, and if we're trying to create a record to justify a specific condition, they're the appropriate person to bring here for testimony, so.
Yep.
So I think, in keeping with the board's ideas about the architectural elements, it appears to me that there's essentially minimal windows, like very minimal windows. And I think the other point that I was thinking about is with all those single units, having a washer-dryer facility, it's a lot of work for somebody to have to pack stuff up, their laundry up in a car and drive off. And, we were actually talking about it staff-wise today, that there are not laundry facilities in town. I think there's actually currently one laundry in the whole town.
It's great, yeah.
And that's not gonna work. And I think, to particularly expect that people are going to have to, like I say, you've got all these single units.
There is a
It just
utility
seems as
building.
though to either have a laundry facility in the basement, or if you're gonna bump out a sprinkler room on the side, that you add that in,
That's a good
They
pickup.
have a utility building, make a,
Well, I think the Board
Increase
of
in
Health
size.
was a little bit wonky. I think having a separate building where you would do laundry on the property creates a problem for the septic, because you have to have a separate allowance for that. But I think within the structure, certainly we've have other developments that offer that.
how could it affect? I mean,
Like-
where it comes from.
Because it could be essentially a commercial, like if you have a laundry facility on this development,
it could-
there's not a way to keep public from coming in or whatever, I
Library water.
guess.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Excuse me.
it could become a laundromat, right?
That's how I did this. I had coin-op washers in my rental, because people used to
I'd like to
invite their
address
friends.
that, though, to comment. The plumbing code in Massachusetts requires that we either provide hookups in the units or have a laundry facility on site. We plan to put hookups in the unit, not provide the washer and dryer, but to put the hookup in the unit so they can get a
Single-
washer
in the
dryer.
in the single units?
In all units have to have that
But I
by
mean, I
plumbing
guess
code.
here's the other practical thing, is that, you just pick a random 20-year-old that this is ideal for, right? They need a single, dwelling unit, right, for themselves. The chances are that, especially in an affordable circumstance, that they're gonna have the money to go out and purchase, and then they have to find a way to get somebody to deliver and install them. I think it's a huge expectation for a single unit to think that somebody's gonna make that investment if they're there for a year, we'll say. That's a lot of time, effort, and money on somebody's behalf to do that. And I just don't think it's a practical solution. I think you provide the hookup, but it puts a lot of pressure on the renter to be able to, purchase and have those installed?
You have to get a car, too. Am I responsible for that?
No, but what I'm saying, I mean, it just, I think it's a huge expectation for a single unit.
We're asking you to think it through.
We did them, we've done them in others. The 123 Brick Kiln has washers and dryers, abused like you wouldn't believe. But that doesn't address the issue. It's up to management to make sure they don't abuse them and have all their family coming over and doing their laundry there. But I'll look into it.
Yeah,
We-
so here, if you had a shared facility within that building that all the units could have access to, you could have, you know, a card access or something where, so it's not free, right? They're paying for the use of the washer dryer, but they don't have to pack everything in their car and go to a laundromat, right?
But I say it is a requirement that we either provide that or a hookup inside.
Yeah.
I will talk to the owner and see if he will.
I just don't
Help
think that, you
solve
know,
this
it's like
problem.
you're putting in a hookup that probably primarily is not gonna get used, right?
I don't know. I've seen them all used in the Rebecca Ram project. Everybody had washer and dryer there.
Right. Well,
Yeah, but, I mean, we'll see. You're right. There's some people can't afford it.
Tough
And
bit.
and these are at the low end of the market, these units, so. I'm talking about the studios.
and these single units all have 2 windows only, correct? One at each end of the unit?
Of course, you can't do much about the.
That's the way it looks
Yeah,
from
one of the
the-
bedroom,
They have to
one's the
meet light
front.
code and fire code.
These obviously have to get a building permit, so they have to meet all the codes.
But it goes beyond, you're going beyond that, what you're saying. Need more.
So if you,
It just looks to be, you know, like minimal window, or maybe it's the size. It just
No, you're right.
doesn't seem
No,
like
you're
there's a
right. You're
lot of
absolutely
light.
right.
back to the,
Architectural review will get into this, I think, in depth. So I'd like to turn this over to some public comment, and move this along, so, go ahead, ma'am.
No way, really? We couldn't tell.
Hey, ma'am, you got 2 minutes.
I am Christine Geary. I am.
You have to talk at the podium,
Okay,
sorry.
then I will hand this out. These are, I'm going to submit to the board also. Is that
Okay,
okay?
yep, Suzanne will take one
Okay,
thing.
let me do one for everyone.
Just so the folks at home.
We can pass it out.
Yeah, the
And you
folks
can
at
go up to
home
the
can
podium.
We can just
hear you.
pass it right down the line. You got it.
And then, I think I have one to resubmit if you want to add.
That's the one I can stamp?
But this is all the information that supports that.
Okay, so I'll stamp all
So
this.
I
Got
would
it.
like that submitted to the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do
No, I did not. Sorry. You can.
like to stamp. Can't think when I stamp.
Hi, my name is Christine Geary. I am at 77 Brick Kiln Road. I'm not opposed to a 40B, but I am opposed to the size of the 40B that is on the unit, on the land, sorry, that is at 85 Brick Kiln Road. I handed out talking points. I don't have enough time to go through those, so I'm gonna let you look at all of that information. There's 3 different sections. I'm speaking for all of the abutters that I met with, and I know I only have 2 minutes, but I wanna get to
We'll
this.
extend if you request, we just,
Okay, yeah. All right, so,
especially if you're representing more than one person. We just
Yes,
don't
I
wanna-
am.
We just don't want to hear the same thing over and over when,
right, okay.
how much time would you like?
Well, if I can go through this paperwork with you, I've done an extensive research on all of the documentation that you have online and other documents that are associated with what I found online. And I met with Nick, and I'm not going to go through this first page, but it was very lackluster for all of our people that we were there. We waited 20 minutes in the rain, waiting for him at 9 o'clock. He was late and didn't answer any of our questions, so we really are very grateful to be here tonight to hear and ask questions. And like I said, I'll let you read the first page. I would like to see if I could get a response for any of the stuff that I'm going to continue on from the second page on. So I did a comprehensive review. I found a lot of things that were incorrect, things that were inconsistent, and things that didn't apply. And Nick did already go through and say that he put in on number 3 of the third page of the application that he put acapacit, so I won't go over that. But these are some of the things that I had found. The first one is just the acreage was incorrect. On number 2, page 3, the zoning coverage of the structures and impermeable surfaces is 41.3%. He's asking for he's asking for himself to get a variance on that. When I did, thank you, a waiver, and when I did the calculations, it came up closer to 60% of the area is covered by all of that. Again, I found inconsistencies in the application. Number 3, on page 3 was the acapacit, which he has already talked to, and I can just forego that one. On number 4, on page 4 of the application, and this is all in the back. I gave that packet to you. It's all in there, and I've highlighted it, so if you need to refer to that. Total buildable area is not consistent with the plot that was submitted for the previous plan from Drew, David Drew, sorry. If you refer, I actually have a copy of that. He calls the front part of his lot not buildable. So that's the road area of the actual plan. His buildable area is where the houses are, which is a consistency of probably about 3 acres if you look at it. So I found that to be a little off as well. Page number 5 on page 6, total gross square footage. And this is very important, especially when it comes to calculating out rain runoff, storm runoff, or any of that calculations for information for drainage. I live at the lowest point in the road. That's also covered in here. So that's a big concern for me and my husband. It says that the total building square footage is 27,320 for buildings, and then the garages are 2184, which contradicts the statement that was on page 3 of the zoning relief section that he asked for coverage. He didn't include the garages in that for his total land coverage. Traffic study has not been submitted. It was required by Mass Housing. They had suggested it, and as part of their application, the municipality, which is you, also had said that that is a good possibility that we need to look at the traffic impact. I work in Pecasset, and it took me 5 light cycles to get through the light at 4:45, crossing Brick Hill to get to my house on Sandwich Road to cross that. So we need to really look at, either a better design in that intersection, because I know that we're going to have 300 units from another, and that's more traffic. So it's just a suggestion, but that's something that I noticed that was not submitted. There was an error on the MHFA application that they said they only had 18 studio apartments. The zoning board review stated in the plans that were submitted weren't enough details, and I totally agree with you on that. He didn't address any of the overhangs, and that's where the square footage is, and that's where the calculations come in. And the concern is the calculations for the drainage bins and any of the runoff is incorrect. So we have the slabs for the refuse that he didn't count, the mail area, the 3 garages, and then now the area for the, was it the sprinkler, I think that he said, the sprinkler room? That also is something new that has to be calculated in to get an accurate calculation. But the most concerning, like I said, I live on the southeast side of Brick Kiln, and I can't point to it because I don't have a map, but I am right at the drainage bin, the basin. That's my property, and that is literally maybe 20 feet from my brand-new garage we built in 2020. So I have a concern because of the slope. I really would love to have somebody come in and, like the engineers, come to my property, please, and see. It says that we're at grade 26 feet. The property runs 42 all the way down to about 28. So again, I actually have lower spots in my property that fill with water when it rains from road runoff right now off of Brick Kiln, and it is a big concern. But it's cited in the ZBA document for review that on page 7, number 32, we recommend that the review engineer look closely at the the proposed grading along the easterly property line and evaluate any potential stormwater runoff impacts to the abutting property, and that would be my property. So I would love to recommend that the stormwater engineer please come and set up a visit, and with anyone else, if I could, any health department, engineering, whatever you suggest. But number 10, proposed conditions, approximately 24,749 square feet in building footprint and approximately 57,154 square feet of paved walkways. That comes up to a total of 81,194 square feet. And that's what they have for coverage. But they have 2 different numbers in the document. They talk to 24,749 and then 27,320. So there's a conflict in numbers, and it doesn't really show, consistency throughout this documentation. And it's concerning, especially when it comes to the stormwater management. Number 6, the volume capacity of the stormwater management system is the drain basin areas. They don't identify what low-intensity rainfall is. What is the capacity of a low-intensity rainfall? That's what the roof and the collection basins from the roofs are going to handle. When we have a really bad storm, like we had heavy rain the other day, we get a flood of water coming down Brick Kiln, and the drainage basin, that it's a swale on both sides of the road, doesn't cover that. The capacity is so intense. So I'm very concerned about this. And then the groundwater recharge, again, the same thing. The minimum of this is 4 feet above the seasonal high groundwater. I looked at the plans, and they said that at the base of the basin, which is near where my property line is 22.50 feet. If that is the fact, my property at some points is probably 23 or 24. So I have a concern of drainage on that, especially when the ground freezes, when we have intense rainstorms. And then we also have the water quality which is on page 8, standard number 4. It says, how can they calculate the rule with a 1.86 acres that doesn't match? 1.86 acres comes from the number that they have calculated as their square footage, and it doesn't add up. I proved that by showing that they're not counting the garages, they're not counting other parts of that as well. They're not counting the roof pitch. I'm not an engineer, but when you're calculating square footage and coverage of impermeable areas, and when you're looking at things of that sort, your calculation should include all the ramps coming off of all the apartments, the little porches that I saw that are in the front of each porch. You have to calculate that in, along with your sidewalks, along with your roads, along with your roof pitch. And some of these, they were calculated, like this one here. The deck size is not part of the calculation. So you have a deck on each side that I don't know how long that is. It could be a 6-foot, it could be an 8-foot deck. Those aren't calculated in. They're covered by, like the ones on the studio apartments are covered, there's by a roof. So that area has to be calculated in to calculate the runoff for the drainage swales. And then you have the existing conditions, and this is the really important one. In their stormwater report, Appendix A, the model shows 1S, which is my which is the spot on the report where they're collecting data, and 2S where they're collecting data, and 3S. And my property is on the southeast corner, which they call me 1R. And then Jennifer, her property with Troy, they are 2R. We are the most collected water that runs off of 85 Brick Kiln. Mine is the highest. I believe they said 408 in a 2-year period. And I actually included all the data in this so you can take a look at that as well. But in Appendix B, when they did the proposed conditioning models, their S1 is in the middle of that parking lot, that green area. It is not out where my property is. So it doesn't accurately capture if what they put in is going to address any of the runoff issues. It's taking what the middle of the, the parking area is, which it doesn't cover that. So it's very concerning there.
I'm married to her, also 77 Brick Hill. You can tell she came in here loaded for bear with all this details, and she'll pick apart anything, guaranteed. But I think we can, after listening, and I'm not shortchanging you, but the air conditioning turned off, and I'm dying in here.
Thank you.
It is. Yeah. After listening to your comments, and I especially like the, looks like Otis Air Force Base, overall, I don't think anybody that's a butter here is against 40B, but we're trying to ram way too much onto 3 acres. And we're the low spot. We're concerned with the drainage all coming down on top of us. And I heard your comments. It's.
Do you want to read that? Because
no,
that's important.
I can paraphrase.
All right.
It's blatantly ugly. It doesn't hold up with, trying to keep Falmouth being Falmouth that we moved into 4 years. 4 years?
4 years. 5 years ago.
5 years ago. It's not the same Falmouth, and we just keep ramming this stuff in, and it's gonna, and I hate to use the term, but it's gonna be Brockton by the Sea, brought to you by 40B. It's hideous, but we're ramming way too much onto a 3-acre parcel. They could say it's 4, but the front acre is completely unusable. Okay. And we're trying to put basically 40 units where you could put normally, say, 10. Mm-hmm. And I know you said that, and you're gonna have all this going. Yeah, but it's going to go all to review and everything else.
Yeah, I understand, but could I just get these?
I'm going to just
But
stop for a second. I've been very generous with the time.
No, that's
Well, I know, I just like to say, but
Yep.
the air went off and us, and they're going, and I see everybody else going.
I know.
And for anyone in the audience, we encourage, written submissions are always read by this board. The
Yep.
board read about 250 pages of documents this evening for their 6th hearing, so if we ever cut anybody off, please feel free to send an email or a letter into the board.
I would just.
Ask you to wrap up, please. You're certainly going to be welcome to comment later on.
Okay, I was just gonna, I have only 2 more points, and I'll be very brief if I can. I would, like I said, my concern is that I reviewed your affordable, your 40B and 40A affordable permits, and I kind of just went through and I estimated how many units were put on for 3 to 6 acres, and I found the maximum was Brick Hill Place, and it has 20 units on 3.62 acres. I don't understand how you can put 40 units on 4.31 acres, which is a little more than a half acre. That's twice as many units on there, especially, and then the next point is that there's a Falmouth housing production plan, and that's what we use to roll out this. I did my research on it. It talks about general residents, and it talks about what we want to do, but then also, there's a lot of really good information in there about your surveys, and you survey demographics and ages. The demographics and ages and populations, and the biggest thing is you have a declining population of children under 18, and you also have a substantial decline in young adults 25 to 44. How does 22 studio apartments address that, when it's more than half of all the buildings that are on that property? It's very concerning that we can't address that, because on page 88 of the same document, the other concerns is, bottom line, what will the future generations in the town look like if these trends continue? So that's all I have to say, and I thank my husband for helping me out, but I have submitted quite a bit of information, and
It will be reviewed.
And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, there's an open board seat.
Anybody to review anything, I am very good at it. Can I speak? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gleason from 23 Sophie Lane with Troy Black. And as Christine said, we take on most of the water. My property takes on all the rainwater from Sophie Lane. When they called Sophie Lane, they cut corners, and they were supposed to originally put in actual drainage, but then they decided to put in a gully. So my concern is additional rainwater into that gully from 85 Brick Hill. And now he says that children are gonna play in that back area, which is, my house abuts that whole corner of that whole 3-bedroom section. And now you're gonna put children in there, and unless they're gonna put up some sort of fencing, my concern is children playing in this water. Most of my yard is already fenced in by chain link because I have a dog, and I like to try to keep him in the yard even though he's a jumper. I'm concerned about that drainage area and taking on more water. I already have mosquitoes galore from the water that's there all the time. And when we have these big rainstorms, it comes down, we call it Black's River, because my other half is Troy Black. So we call it Black's River because the water comes down so fast that it just goes down and goes into part of their back property and the other neighbor to us. It goes into her backyard also. So I'm just a little concerned that now we're gonna have children playing in this area. And, parents let the kids play, and sometimes they're not always watching, and the kids, they're kids are kids. And so I don't have a problem with the 40B, but I have a problem like everybody else. The size of the project is just too big for that area, and the concerning of the water into my gully that I pay taxes for that I can't use on my own land. So that's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Other public comment? Sir? You're welcome.
Then I just realized,
Good
did
evening.
you see it the whole time?
My name is Luke Barmakian. I live at 97 Brick Kiln Road, along with my fiancee, Shelley Santucci. I'd like to address the comments that Suzanne Murphy made. Yes, there was dirt dumped on that road.
Yeah.
Probably 50 to 100 yards of it. Not one grain of it did it end up in my yard. Not one bit of it. Yes, I am doing work on our yard. Yes, my contractor is parking his trailers on that property with permission from the owner. But none of that dirt ended up in our yard at all. Where it went, I don't know. But a couple of weeks ago it was there, and now it's gone. So I don't know how you estimated that dirt came to my yard, but I paid for every grain of dirt that showed up. That's all. Just wanted to make the record clear.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be brief. Hi, I'm Christina LeBlanc, and we did meet him on Brick Hill Road. And I hope we can work together, but the comment, everything you brought up is what we brought up. But I will say, the one comment you did say that you kept saying, no, it's gotta be 40 units, we're not downsizing. I brought up about the kids in the play area. They need a playground, something to be kids. But you were adamant and you said, no, we're not changing the 40 units. I just want them to know that you said that to us and that public space that we waited for because you wanted to share the plans and the projects. We're not opposed to 40B. The size is impractical. It's not practical. The traffic is the biggest concern. Safety on the roads with scooters and electric scooters going up and down because everybody's riding electric bikes, electric scooters. The infrastructure is not there for the size that you're talking about, and maybe even for 20 units, it might not even be there. So Falmouth has to figure out the infrastructure, how is that gonna happen? The pumping of the water, all these units, and you just set up here, your other unit on 123 Brook Hill, the one that is on the other side of us, that they're causing problems with your washer and dryers, they're abusing it, families are coming in. So really, if you said that, families are coming in and using their washer and dryers and they're abusing it and breaking things, so it must be more than just the amount of people in those units. That's a concern as well for the septic system that's going to be having to be planned for that. So I just wanted to bring that, and just, Sylvie, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment?
No.
Yep.
Sitting too long. Hi, everybody. I'm Pam Hanna. I live at 36 Candace Way, which is the other side of the street where it shows the 3 parcels by the addition. I just want to say something about the wildlife. I've been on Candace Way for 20 years. There's extensive wildlife back there. There's lots of animals that migrate because right in the middle of Candace Way, there's a drainage easement, and that fills with water also. But I'm a wildlife person, and I'd like to just make sure there's consideration for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any other comments? Ma'am?
We own 50 Candace Way on the other side. It's
Can we have your name and address, please, ma'am?
Olga Shaknovsky,
Thank you
50
very much.
Candace Way. We are in the backyard. We have wooded area full of animals. I agree with that. We hear coyotes, there is a lot. Where will they go if they eliminate all this wooded area? Also, my concern is, will they leave any trees be in between our property and the beginning of the project. It doesn't look clear on the plan. Will they eliminate all the trees? It will be all open, or they will leave a buffer zone? That's not clear at all to us. We're very concerned about that, about light pollution, about noise, about environmental impact. So we'd like to hear answers to those questions too. And we also agree it's too big of a project for this very small area.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Any other public comment? Sir?
Thomas McCauley, 37 Sophie Lane. Couple of comments on the application. First of all, the applicant says this building development is consistent with traditional Cape Cod architecture.
At the base, at the base.
At the
it
base.
is. At the base.
In Hyannis, maybe.
Maybe.
Right? I question that, as the board rightly does. Second piece, Nick, you talked about Acapasket Road. This application's incorrect. It's clearly mentioning 5 units on Acapasket Road. So how can we consider a development on Brick Hill when the application talks about Acapasket? It's incorrect. Is this application valid?
Mass
I'd like to
Housing will
thank
say
my,
it is.
my neighbors for bringing up shared concerns about the landscaping as well. Buffer zone and wildlife, very concerned about the wildlife. I've called town environmental agent, and he hasn't returned my call, Chuck Martinson. Left 2 messages for him to talk about wildlife and endangered species that may be on the property. So I'd urge the board to follow up on that and make sure that the correct studies are done. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? So we are looking for a continuation of this, Noreen. What is the next date that we're looking at?
August 29th.
Mr. Marion, does that work for you?
You have a minute to just, the purpose of the meeting with the abutters, and I admit I got off on the wrong foot. I sent out a notice that said 9 o'clock on site. I put it in my calendar at 9:30. I thought I was 10 minutes early. I was 20 minutes late. My bad. I'm sorry. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss buffering, explain what the project was about, see if we could take some of those concerns into our landscape plan up front. It wasn't to negotiate how many units we were going to get. That's between us. So my attitude, they might not have liked it, but I wasn't negotiating now with them. I was looking to talk about buffering and how this project affects their yards from the location where we are. And there is some natural buffering going to stay. And I've been contacted by some people already about cutting trees, and we told them no trees will get cut out there without the approval of the board. We will review their backyards with them before we cut the trees, show them where we're cutting before we cut. And I think that's consistent with what the board requires anyway. As for the engineering comments that were made, I'm confused. I mean, our engineers submitted those numbers. We will hopefully get the peer review engineer to review the comments that were made and submitted and discuss them with our engineer. And hopefully by the time we get to that point, we'll work all those things out on the drainage and the other things that are concerned not only to the neighbors but to us. We don't want problems afterwards either. So August 29th, you're saying, would that give us enough time to get a peer review consultant to review the plans, get them back to us so that we can address their concerns before the next meeting?
He's asking her.
So I'll have to check and see if we can get the peer engineer contract and everything else. But I think in the meanwhile, there's enough other items to discuss that if the engineer can't come that date, but the next one, we still have items to discuss.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until 8/29/24, 6 PM here in Town Hall.
So moved.
That should be a second.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, it's a roll call vote.
Duffy, aye.
North side.
Murphy, aye.
Thank you.
We're continued to 8/29/24, 6 PM. That concludes new hearings under the agenda. Moving on to open meeting. Noreen, what are we tabling on this list? I don't recall all of these.
So, we are voting minutes for May 23rd, June 6th, and June 13th.
Be tabling the minutes of June 20th and 27th. Has everyone on the board had opportunity to review the minutes of May 23rd, June 6th, and June 13th? Are there any corrections or additions that need to be made? I'll make a motion then to approve the minutes as published of May 23rd, June 6th, and June 13th of 2024. Any discussion on the motion? Any second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Those minutes are approved. Zoning Administrator update.
So, quickly.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Subcommittee from the Cape Cod Commission met on Tuesday, July 2, to begin the review for the new cellular monopole to be sited on Gifford Street. They had a full hearing. It was continued to July 30th, and they're anticipating a draft decision go to the full committee proposed for August 22. So clearly, there are other boards that are busy, similar to ours. And then following approval with Cape Cod Commission, they will be coming back to the zoning board. I guess having monitored the first meeting, the good news that I'll have for the board is that Cape Cod Commission is looking at radio frequency engineering, proximate other locations that the cell carriers are already on, et cetera. So they're doing a bunch of work so that you will have less to do, which is good.
We like that.
Cape Cod Commission also opened a hearing on the proposed YMCA at 45 Brick Kiln. That just occurred on Wednesday, July 10. That property is next door to Josiah Path, which is the 40B that you have approved. So certainly a good location next to the high school for that. That will be eventually before the planning board when Cape Cod Commission's done, and then eventually before you. We issued administrative approvals for 85 Fay. They were not adding rooms, just bumping out the back and renovating a front porch. 17 Crystal Spring, same thing. No additional rooms, just bumping out a kitchen and deck and replacing an existing entry. Zoning Board of Appeals is submitting a capital improvement request, just so that you know financially what's going on. We're looking to have all the old zoning decisions scanned in. We are also trying to finalize our launch of Permitize. So the eventual intent is that people will be applying electronically, but that we, as well as potentially applicants, can have access to prior zoning decisions. That's been a problem in the past with people finding them, missing them. And, you know, many circumstances, those prior decisions are critical to the future of the lot. Some are not, but we need to still have those all correctly attached to all the lots. And then, let's see, so moving forward with Permitize software, we'll let you know when that's ready to launch. Ashley and I, especially Ashley, have been working very hard on making sure that when applicants type in the information, it's hopefully going to be less data entry work for us. You know, we'll still have to check that information's correct, which is always a problem. We're getting there. And then we have 2 fine board members on the bylaw working group. And Ms. Murphy and Mr. Duffy, thank you for your additional time and effort, because it's a lot of work to work with a couple of planning board members and town staff to try to get the bylaw squared away. We're currently working on non-conforming structures and uses, which is a big issue for the zoning board. So when we have that language presumptively finalized, we'll distribute that in case anybody has further comments. Hoping that will be before town meeting in the fall. And that concludes what I have for you.
Thank you, Noreen.
Yeah, she's been working hard at that meeting. Especially Section 10, it's been all on you, pretty much. We're glad to have you.
Any board discussion?
Yeah. My calculations, we got 540Bs in front of us with 387 units. Why two?
We closed one, though,
And
so
one
we
more
lost
on the way.
300.
2 more.
2 more on the way.
Are we not eligible for a stay now?
My understanding is that because we closed 375 Sandwich, those aren't calculated towards the total number of units before the ZBA, so we are not.
Till decision.
Yeah, the zoning board is not, or the town is not eligible to count units toward the SHI until a decision is filed. So whenever it is that you file a decision.
My question isn't about safe harbor.
Yeah.
My question is about a stay.
Right.
And it seems to me, with the points that were brought up this evening,
Right.
that this thing was rushed to us kind of in an incomplete state. And I'm just
Exactly.
afraid that we're going to get 5 more before. I mean, what good is this stay if we can't use it?
Right. So the stay language is very peculiar. I reached out to the state about that. They actually had no advice to offer. Apparently, it's very obscure, and most communities don't take advantage or can't, because you have to have at least 300 units proposed. It has to be 3 or more developments, all at the same time. We hit that benchmark, except that we closed one of the hearings. So because
How is that both? You have to have both?
You
or-
have to have high tide, full moon, yes. So,
Because we got 4 then.
right, so the moment that we
Probably gonna have
closed
6.
one of the hearings, so now there are less than 300 units in total, we lost that opportunity for a stay. That being said, when and if the town hits 10%, you
I mean,
gain
that's
control.
safe harbor then.
Right.
But I mean, this stay thing, I mean, why they put the language in there and nobody understands it? It's just,
Well, it was vastly unfortunate. It was a timing issue where if we had not closed the hearing, we would have been eligible. But when the hearing closed, we lost our eligibility.
that's like, chicken
Yeah,
or the
so-
egg thing, for Christ's sake.
So you were shown the ice cream cone, but you can't have it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess,
We
from
had
a
no choice but to close it, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were
Right,
Yeah.
up against the wall.
exactly.
So process perspective, to Mark's point, where we have more 40Bs coming in, can't we open the hearing, as we did say this evening, but then not have a second hearing on that until we have peer reviews completed, so that we're, I guess, that much more efficient? So we're not going to have that second meeting where we might not have peer reviews completed.
The board's free to,
Just to add to that, I'm sorry.
let's just say, the board's free to put it out and wait for the review, but we still have to operate within the
Within the
same.
6 months.
Right, the 6-month timeframe. And we could
Right.
say, we're going to table it 160 days, but we're still up against the
20
clock.
days
So
left.
Right.
what are we reviewing if we don't have peer reviews to talk about? What are you would mention that tonight, what are we actually going to be looking at?
So here's the other problem with 40B, is that the state allows a developer to give you sketches of what they're thinking about doing. You had some renderings
That's what we had tonight,
right?
yep.
So the developer's entitled to make changes to those, and
conceptual.
they would typically do that based on comment. So if you found that there was one window and you wanted multiple windows, so now you give them that information, and hopefully they go back to the drawing board and they make changes for you. So if you kick something down the road 3 months, it's going to be that amount of time where they're not meeting with you to see if they've made changes that you find acceptable. The neighbors want to be heard because they're very concerned. Their lives are all essentially on hold for the duration. So if you kick them out down the road 3 months, they're all sitting there at home steaming for 3 months because they are not part of the process, because they're on ice as well, right? So it's,
Maybe not, I guess you said 3 months, and we'll get into it, but I mean, I'm just looking at the next 9 weeks in a row and how substantive the information, kind of to Tony's point. It's not a 3-month push, but it could be 2 months.
And why aren't we compelling, or can we compel them to make, well, we can't compel them to necessarily make the changes we want, but we've asked for certain things like architectural changes. Why aren't we asking them to come back on the 29th? He has no instructions from us at this point in time. Why don't we instruct them to do that? Come back with some architectural renderings pursuant to our concerns, because I don't think it's gonna happen.
In general.
In general.
right.
In general.
Well, and I think, therein lies the problem, like we talk about an architectural design review. Do you want to give the applicant one meeting to make changes, and if they don't, then you have the architectural review, or you could just frankly, obviously have an architect come in and say, hey, look, here are some tweaks that can be made that will, bring out more characteristics.
I think that's what we
that are-
asked for, architectural review. What doesn't that mean that we want an architect here to
Right,
do
so,
something?
so that would be what you're asking for, or
So-
asked for, right?
So somebody could come in here with a 300-unit proposal on the back of a napkin,
Yep.
and it's in the hopper, and we got to accept it.
They would have to get approval from the state before that.
Yeah.
They'd have to
Well,
compel.
so
Yes.
technically, the state does allow people to come in
Yeah.
with proposals that are not fully finished, if you will. Right.
The thing you'll see, though, is once we reach safe harbor, these people will back off.
Well, and I think the other point,
But
when you
until we
looked
do, they're
at,
going to
But
keep
this
loading the
town has a
hopper up
problem
on
that
us.
they want more.
when you
Yes.
looked at the architectural presentation for one of the larger developments that you did recently, and the architect came in and actually said, hey, we're using design elements that are from other parts of your community,
Yeah.
and we've put those into this development. Here, yeah, you have a circumstance where they clearly have to put a lot of time and effort into some aesthetic details that would improve the development.
But that, my original point, that stay, reminds me of that old insurance commercial with
That's exactly what it was.
One more
She
question.
emailed many times.
When we do reach safe harbor, then they can't appeal anything to HAC,
Correct.
but we have, there'll be applications in front of us. We have to consider them, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Right, so we have,
We have the ability, though, to say no,
all right, that's the difference. So we could say no.
or not in its
Yeah.
present form, and that actually have some teeth.
Because they
Now I
can't-
understand.
Right.
I think the hack
We
has
just treat it
people
like a
that wrote
regular
before need be.
Is that, all right?
All right.
Any good news that you'd like to
Any
bestow?
updates?
We need good news. Scott's on his own, he's still alive.
So just a couple of, for, I guess, future agenda items, if we're just skipping down the list. One of the items that Ashley and I have been talking about in the office is the letters that we receive from abutters typically. And those, try to be, I think, efficient, and we forward them along as they come in. But what can happen for the board is that you can get like random letters for random projects, and you may not recall that you got one for a specific project.
Right.
And we recently had an abutter who came in and said, felt very disappointed, oh, they didn't see my letter, or didn't read it or acknowledge it. And so what we're considering doing is actually posting those letters to the website as part of what the board has access to, so that everything for a project is there and together. And that way, because we do reply, every single email that comes in and says, I have a concern about whatever, we reply to them, we received it, we forward it to you, we put a copy in the file, but we hadn't been posting them because often people provide their personal addresses or possibly phone numbers. So we were trying to sort of protect that, but, you know, maybe we can redact if they put in a phone number or something. You know, we can find a way to,
Butter A
like,
or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Or you don't want to necessarily post somebody's private email address. So we can, I think, find a way to sort of
Yeah.
redact a piece of
Yeah.
that letter so that it's still accessible and people understand, yes, we actually did receive it, right? So there's that.
Magic marker would work for that.
You know, we've talked about having department heads come, and I think it's a really good idea with 40Bs.
Definitely.
I don't think we're gonna get pushback, and I think if we do, then we can talk to administration about that, but I think really department heads, you know, as long as we don't overuse their time, because they all work a full day and love to go home at night like all the
And
rest
what I'm
of
going to
us.
suggest is
you
just
know.
to make sure they get advance notice, a
No,
sufficient amount of notice.
But I think asking them to come and, you know, certainly the whole nitrogen issue.
Well, and that's the thing,
water
is
quality.
we need to create a record, and they are
Yes.
they're the town's subject matter experts. So
Correct.
having their testimony in the file
Yep.
is important
Yeah.
for a condition that would hopefully get upheld, and then after safe harbor, there's something in the record to justify a condition or a denial.
I think, you know, you may find that you're still gonna get some competing information, because what the state requires is a certain level, right? And what the town wants and considers to be optimal is different. So you could get one party, such as the Board of Health, saying, hey, standard Title V is fine, and you might have somebody from water quality saying, hey, that's still more nitrogen than we really want. So you may not have things crystal clear, but at least it's out there.
At least
Sometimes,
we have the information.
sometimes short of having the actual department heads come here, just further comment might be sufficient.
It's great to have them, because then you'll think of a question. When you're
Yeah.
reading a document, your questions are not getting answered.
And I think
It's
they'd
great.
appreciate, like, if you're looking for them specifically versus we invite everybody to come and they
Yeah.
sit there, that's a waste of time. But, you know, when you have questions for a particular person, I'm sure they're more than
No, but
happy
this
to.
last case is perfect for it.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
And again, it's mostly a 40B kind of.
Yeah.
The individual ones, we can usually figure out on our own. Okay, that's good news.
Here's the good news of the day.
So, our next meeting will be held July 18th, 2024, at 6 PM here in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. I will move to unanimous consent that we adjourn.
Sure.
Second.
Thank you.